Chapter 21:20. The Demon Emperor raised his finger and slowly pointed at the ninth heaven fairy. However, his finger did not stop there. It went around her and finally stopped at Princess Piscine. Princess Piscine was slightly stunned and said, "Father, why are you pointing at me?" Poof! The Demon Emperor's fingertip released a layer of faint ripples, and Princess Piscine's soul dissipated like a puff of smoke. Not a single trace of his soul was left. This scene had occurred so suddenly that it caught everyone off guard, and it was unbelievable. The Demon Emperor killed his only daughter with his own hands? Su Yu was the only one who finally understood where he had missed out after his mind roared. If the soul of the Demon Emperor's daughter could be silently occupied, why couldn't the Demon Emperor do the same? Thinking of this, Su Yu felt a chill run down his spine. Without thinking, he immediately used the yin-yang wings of Supreme Pole to escape. However, as soon as he used it, he found that the entire hall was in a mysterious state, making it impossible for him to teleport away. His movement finally awakened the myriad Thunder Beast King and the Dragon Beast King, and they rushed towards the gate of the hall. The Demon Emperor was a fake. This news was earth-shattering. Once it was leaked, the whole world would be shocked. Soon, the two of them arrived at the gate of the palace. With the strength of the Half-Path Master, they could easily blast the gate of the hall open. However, before they could escape, a layer of clear light shrouded the gate and bounced them back. Both of their faces were extremely gloomy. The Demon Emperor stood up slowly. The mysterious fairy of the nine heavens beside him had a playful smile on her face. "Are you surprised? Are you surprised?" Su Yu's heart sank. In front of the Path Master, any resistance was useless. Unless the Demon Emperor could lower his guard like the Path Master on the Luoho Mountain and give Su Yu a chance to use the Demon Heart Hammer. However, he obviously would not and would not give Su Yu a chance. His heart sank. The myriad Thunder Beast King trembled and said in disbelief, "When did the Demon Emperor's body be occupied by someone?" The Demon Emperor's eyes were dignified as he said lightly, "Who do you think I am?" The myriad Thunder Beast King shook her head bitterly. She did not want to know, let alone who it was. Only the Dragon Prince laughed self-deprecatingly. "I should have known. You allowed Princess Piscine to do whatever she wanted. You are no longer the Demon Emperor. I think you're also a doppelganger of the ninth heaven fairy, right?" The Spirit Demon Emperor was silent, but Princess by Xian smiled. "Correct. Speaking of which, you are the smartest among all the Spirit Demon Princes. You are also the first to notice that the Spirit Demon Emperor is not normal. So, this is the reason why I put you into the hunting grounds." Knowing the real reason, the Demon Prince smiled bitterly. The bloodline of the Demon Emperor had long been controlled by the fairy of the ninth heaven. It was a pity that all the demons in the world were kept in the dark. The myriad Lightning Beast King's heart was filled with despair as he said, "Then, the Siren Sovereign purposely brought all of us here to kill all of us to prevent the news from leaking out?" Princess by Xian smiled charmingly. "What else?" She looked around and said, "Only when all of you are dead will I be the real Princess Piscine, right?" Indeed, they were all silenced. The Demon Emperor announced to the public that the Nine Heavens Mystic Fairy had been executed, and from then on, she was the real Princess by Xian. "Originally, I didn't want to use the Demon Emperor's clone to avoid being noticed. But in the end, I still have to ask the Demon Emperor's clone for help," said Princess by Xian helplessly. The Demon Emperor said indifferently, "You and I are one, it's only right." The Demon Emperor then looked at Su Yu and the others and said calmly, "Don't blame us. A great era is coming, and we are only looking for a place to stay. For our safety, we can only shut you all up." As soon as he finished speaking, a mysterious concept unique to the Path Master swept over in the form of ripples. The myriad Lightning Beast King and the Dragon Beast King burst out in despair. With a furious roar, they exerted all their strength in an attempt to resist. However, in the face of the Path Master's concept, they were merely making the most futile struggle. With a puff, the two of them were crushed into dust by the ripples at the same time. Su Yu was slightly behind, and the next one to be reduced to dust would be him. His heart was as heavy as water, and his thoughts were extremely turbulent, brewing a deep sense of unwillingness. He had fought his way out of the hunting ground, survived the clutches of the sinful lady, and defeated the purple-haired Su Yu. Could it be that he still couldn't escape the end of his destiny? No. It was not the last moment yet. Su Yu suddenly took out the 9-jade spiritual pearl and captured the soul of the white 9-tailed fox. He shouted, "As you wish, I have brought you to the royal family." The white 9-tailed fox was in the 9-jade spiritual pearl, but she knew the situation outside like the back of her hand. There was no surprise or panic on her face when she was forcibly taken out. Even when she looked at the Path Master's ripples, which were inches away from her, she was not the least bit surprised. She did not move at all, merely nodding her head lightly, and the ripples circled around her body. She was just a soul. Yet, she could easily neutralize the Path Master's attack. The pupils of the Demon Emperor and Princess Pishin shrank at the same time. They stared at the white 9-tailed fox, their hearts filled with fear. "You are the stone embryo son of the Holy Mountain, the illusion 9-tailed fox?" The creation of the great beginning realm began with a holy mountain. It was rumored that the holy mountain gave birth to 10 stone embryo sons, who controlled the strongest heavenly path in the world. Every word and action could affect the order of the world. Su Yu's pupils shrank fiercely. He had long heard of the rumors of the holy mountain's 10 sons. But the soul of the white 9-tailed fox, who had always been by his side, was actually one of the 10 sons? Su Yu would never have thought of it. When he first met her, she was merely a dying, illusory soul. How could he relate her to the high and mighty 10 sons of the holy mountain? The white 9-tailed fox chuckled softly. Her smile was filled with the beauty of charm. She said lightly, "Why do you have to say it?" Upon hearing that, the Demon Emperor and Princess Pishin's faces changed drastically, their bodies trembling uncontrollably. "However, you don't have to worry, I won't do anything to you." However, the white 9-tailed fox's tone suddenly changed. The Demon Emperor and Princess Pishin heaved a sigh of relief and knelt down on the spot. The fairy of the 9 heavens greets the Son of Heaven. Even the Demon Emperor, who was the Path Master, knelt down respectfully. Su Yu's heart sank. He had a very bad feeling about this. At first, the white 9-tailed fox had planned to quietly borrow the treasures of the demon realm to find the tail that she had lost. But now, her plan had been completely ruined by Su Yu. She had always harbored ill intentions towards Su Yu. Now that the Demon Emperor and Princess Pishin had submitted to her, what would become of Su Yu? Just thinking about it made Su Yu shudder. Not to mention the white 9-tailed fox's mysterious cultivation, just the Demon Emperor and Princess Pishin were enough to consign Su Yu to eternal damnation. Sure enough, the white 9-tailed fox sat lightly on the dragon throne. Her gentle eyes gently blinked and fell on Su Yu. "How is it? Are you very surprised?" Su Yu forced himself to be calm and said lightly, "I should have thought of it long ago. How could such a magical item like the supreme growing soil come from the demon realm? Your identity should be very extraordinary." He sighed softly and stared at the white 9-tailed fox. He had no intention of begging for mercy. If she really wanted to kill him, begging for mercy would be useless. The white 9-tailed fox covered her red lips and smiled lightly. "Don't be afraid, I won't kill you. I just hope that you can hand over something that doesn't belong to you. For example." Su Yu's heart was at ease. It could be said that the white 9-tailed fox had always been by Su Yu's side. Hence, she knew all of his secret. "For example, everything about you," the white 9-tailed fox said leisurely. "Seeing that you have successfully sent me to the demon realm, I can spare your life. However, from now on you will be an ordinary mortal. Apart from your memories and body, you will not be left with anything." She wanted to deprive Su Yu of most of his soul and body. She wanted him to be immortal for 100 years. In the end, he would become a speck of dust in the world. Suyu smiled. His smile was a little desolate, a little mocking, and a little deranged. You are so kind. After 100 years of being together, all he would get in return was 100 years of being immortal. The white nine-tailed fox sighed faintly. Actually, I didn't want to, but you touched something that you shouldn't have. If it were any of the other 9 emperors, they would probably erase you from the world immediately. Sparing your life is already my limit. Suyu said lightly, then I really have to thank you for sparing me. However, if I don't hand over something that doesn't belong to me, what will you do? Suyu said lightly. The white nine-tailed fox said, then I can only make you disappear. Suyu smiled. It was a deep smile. 100 years of companionship was just a sentence of disappearing. Sigh. Actually, I don't want that to happen, the white nine-tailed fox said calmly. Send him on his way. Don't let him suffer any pain. Her tone was compassionate, but it was a hypocritical kind of compassionate. The demonic beast emperor nodded slightly. His eyes were like lightning as he glared at Suyu, attempting to kill him instantly. But Suyu's eyes suddenly turned fierce, and he laughed for a long time. White nine-tailed fox, you might know everything about me, but there is one thing that you might not know. With a whoosh, he took out the purple box. The white nine-tailed fox pursed her lips slightly, as if she was looking at a child who had used up all his tricks and was making a final struggle. This is the thing that was formed from the 3rd mouthful of the Blood Lotus Dao Demon's blood essence. As for what's inside, there's no harm in telling you now. It's the many strong enemies that he suppressed back then. I know, Suyu said lightly. The white nine-tailed fox's pursed lips froze slightly. She asked in reply, how did you know? She immediately realized that in the one and only month that the 9 jade spiritual pearl had left Suyu, Suyu had experienced things that were beyond her control. Not only do I know the use of this item, but I also know the use of that incantation of yours, and I also know. At this point, the white nine-tailed fox bit her lips together. There was a hint of nervousness in her gentle eyes. She said, kill him immediately. But Suyu retreated casually. With his other hand, he took out a golden key that caused the white nine-tailed fox's expression to change dramatically. Back then, Gang Daliai's mother had left behind the 5 Elements mountain. This mountain had accompanied Suyu all the way to the ancient god realm. In the end, during the battle with the World Annihilation Dragon, it was shattered by the rules. Chapter 21-21. Suyu had never known what this key was used for, so he kept it with him. It was not until today, in this moment of life and death, that he remembered this key that he had almost forgotten. Gang Daliai's mother was a flood dragon, and the flood dragons had always been the royal bloodline of the demon world. Princess Pishin's soul had once said that the demon emperor's concubine had disappeared with the key to this box, and the key's whereabouts had been unknown ever since. He even vaguely remembered that in the Dew Empire, a flood dragon had pursued Suyu relentlessly, saying that he had the scent of the demon world's royal family on him. At that time, the only scent of the demon world's royal family on Suyu could only have been Gang Daliai, right? Therefore, the identity of Gang Daliai's mother was most likely the missing princess. And the golden key she had hidden in the 5 Elements mountain was undoubtedly the key to open the purple box. Observing the white-tailed fox's shrinking pupils, Suyu knew he was right. The golden key in his hand touched the purple box. Creak! The sound of countless chains turning could be heard, and the purple wooden box slowly opened. In an instant, a terrifying evil aura that caused all living beings to tremble swept out from within. The demon emperor's eyes, which were almost solid, were instantly swept back by the murderous aura. The entire demon emperor's great hall was sent flying into the sky. However, the murderous aura that had been suppressed for billions of years was not limited to this. Tens of thousands of times more murderous aura rushed out from the seemingly small purple box and swept across the world. The entire palace was instantly reduced to ruins by the impact of the murderous aura. The demon emperor and Princess Pishin were extremely solemn. You actually controlled the key? The demon emperor and Princess Pishin's faces were extremely grave. The white-tailed fox's calm face was replaced by a trace of anger. Who told you the truth about the key? The heavenly book master? But he might not have known. How could she have known that in the month that she was away, Suyu had learned many truths from the real Princess Pishin? Suyu said nothing and looked at the purple box. Sure enough, there was a crystal ball-shaped object inside. At first glance, Suyu felt that it was strangely familiar. Wasn't this the cage that he had snatched from the black-green water dragon? The difference was that the living beings sealed within the crystal ball were all at the Divine Master realm, whereas the living beings sealed within the crystal ball were at least half-step Dowlords, and there were even 3 terrifyingly formidable Dowlords amongst them. And all of them, without exception, lived in a state of deep sleep. When self-closure was activated, they sensed something and slowly opened their eyes. They all looked at Suyu. Suyu's palms suddenly felt hot. When he opened his palm to take a look, a blood-red demon character appeared in front of him. Even if the Blood Lotus Dao demon dies, he has to find a successor to restrain us. A Dao Lord covered in thousands of eyes let out an ancient and hateful sigh. The demon character was the key to controlling them. The key could open the purple box and release them from the crystal ball, but the demon character could order them around. Suyu pointed with the key in his hand. I choose you. The Dao Master, whose whole body was covered with eyes, was released. As the demon character on Suyu's palm flashed, a similar size, demon character appeared on the Dao Master's forehead. At the same time, Suyu felt that his heart and mind were connected. He had an intuition that he could control his life and death at will. This must be the method that the Blood Lotus Dao demon used to control them. Kill them, Suyu said. However, Suyu's order only received an indifferent look from the Dao Master, who said in a hoarse voice, You want to order us Dao Masters? It's better if the Blood Lotus Dao demon comes. Suyu frowned slightly. Was he not afraid of death? Haha, we've been trapped for countless years. Rather than being sealed for eternity, it's better to die and free ourselves. The Dao Master said indifferently. Even mortals had their own dignity, let alone a Dao Master. He would rather die than listen to the orders of a small creature like Suyu. The Demon Emperor loosened his grip slightly. Princess Pishin's lips curled into a disdainful smile. She said, It seems like you can't escape. Unexpectedly, Suyu pointed with the key in his hand again and released the other 2 Dao Masters. He said indifferently, I will release whoever kills them. Upon hearing that, the eyes of the Dao Master, whose whole body was covered with eyes, shone with a large black light. I'll do it. Swish. The thousands of pitch-black eyes all shot out terrifying waves of light that could destroy the world. Princess Pishin was grazed by a wave of light, and she disappeared instantly. The Demon Emperor was hit by several waves of light, and his whole body was filled with holes. The mysterious aura in his body gushed out in waves. His face was deathly pale, and he retreated frantically. When all the waves of light approached the 9-tailed white fox, all the waves of light bypassed her body, unable to harm her at all. The 9-tailed white fox's eyes shone brightly, and she said coldly, Suyu, I was kind enough to grant you an ordinary life, but you don't know how to cherish it. You even tried to go against me. In that case, I can only grant you death. Crash! A ball of light rotated in her palm. It was the body of the 9-tailed white fox. The soul of the 9-tailed white fox entered the body. Instantly, the lifeless 9-tailed white fox opened her beautiful emerald eyes. She looked at the Dao Master with thousands of eyes and said, Die! Puff, puff, puff. All of a sudden, the eyes on the multi-eyed Dao Master's body shattered like crystals. A large amount of the Tao Master's blood splattered everywhere. The multi-eyed Tao Master was horrified. The heavenly laws, death eye? You are the Saint Mountain's son of heaven? His words were filled with boundless fear. Those were his last words. When all of the eyes on his body had shattered, he stood motionless on the spot. He had died on the spot. Su Yu's pupils shrank. Was the body of the Saint Mountain's son that powerful? Based on Su Yu's soul attainments, he could tell that the body was not a living thing. It was merely controlled by the nine-tailed white fox's soul, and only one eye had been opened. However, a single glance was enough to kill a powerful being of the Tao Master's level. Seeing the nine-tailed white fox's eyes turn and look at him, Su Yu said, "I will release the seal of whoever brings me and my friend away from here. Let me do it." A Tao Master covered in white feathers looked at the nine-tailed white fox indifferently and said, "Will the Saint Mountain's son of heaven also end up having his main soul extinguished, leaving behind only a remnant soul?" Ha! As Tsong Rong laughed, the white feather Tao Master waved his sleeves, and Su Yu and Mao Susu were instantly swept away by the Tao Master. When the two of them reappeared, they were already at a place far away from the Seven Knights' divine capital. "I have kept my promise and brought you away," the white feather Tao Master said. He spoke calmly, but blood was flowing down his back. He was obviously still injured. Su Yu said, "Thank you." He kept his promise and slapped the white feather Tao Master's forehead with his palm that contained the word demon. Immediately, the telepathic connection between Su Yu and the white feather Tao Master ended. The white feather Tao Master's face revealed a smile of relief. He looked at Su Yu with a hint of surprise in his eyes. He had not expected Su Yu to really keep his word. When a mere 5-crown divine being controlled a Tao Master, who would be willing to let go of the temptation of such boundless power and let the Tao Master go? Even if they had to break their promise, they would not hesitate. "Thank you," the white feather Tao Master said calmly. "Although I don't have much time left." Su Yu was speechless. With his attainments in the law of life, he had long seen that the 3 Tao Masters did not have much time left. The cage could only delay the passage of time, but it did not have the ability to freeze time. Therefore, after hundreds of millions of years, although they had lived past the limit of the Tao Masters, their lifespans had actually reached the limit. "A few decades ago I dreamed of a game of chess. I think my lifespan has come to an end," the white feather Tao Master said slowly. Su Yu sighed. "White feather Tao Master, if you have any unfinished business, please go ahead and do it." The white feather Tao Master's voice was full of vicissitudes. "Unfinished business. I'm afraid that the people and things will change, right?" So many years had passed, and all his contemporaries had died of old age. He was the only one left alive. What unfinished business could there be? "Human, for the sake of your keeping your promise, if you are in trouble in the future, come to the White Feather Civilization to look for me, if I am still alive and the White Feather Civilization still exists." The White Feather Tao Master took a deep look at Su Yu. Su Yu remembered that it was extremely rare and precious for a Tao Master to be willing to help him. "Then, I wish you good luck." The White Feather Tao Master turned into white feathers and disappeared from the world. He had stepped into the void and left. Before leaving, Su Yu suddenly received a message from the Path Master Baiyu in his mind. The seal on the last Path Master mustn't be removed so easily. His strength is second only to the Blood Lotus Tao demon in the past. Once he gets his freedom, the first person he will kill might be you. Not all Tao Masters were like the White Feather Tao Master, who took grudges lightly. The resentment of the last Tao Master had accumulated for many years. Once the seal was removed, Su Yu, who was the heir of the cage, would be his target. By then, there would be no 4th Tao Master left in the cage, and the consequences could be imagined. He nodded without batting an eyelid, and sized up the Tao Lord for a moment. The Tao Master was a soul body, but it was quite different from an ordinary soul body. With just a glance, Su-yu felt that the fragment of his soul path was loosening, as if it was about to fall off. Su-yu's heart shuddered, and he immediately imprisoned the Tao Master in the crystal ball again. Looking around and ascertaining his location, Su-yu immediately left the place with Mao Susu, concealing their breaths. Not long after, the demon emperor, who was covered in wounds, appeared. His eyes were grave. Scanning the surroundings, the air of the white feather Tao Master was everywhere, making it impossible to capture the breaths of Su-yu and the others. His search was fruitless, so he returned to the palace and said, "He has most likely left the demon realm." The white nine-tailed fox nodded. "Yes, I know. You can leave for now." Once the demon emperor left, the white nine-tailed fox suddenly shuddered, and the white-robed woman came out of her body. Her solid soul had become extremely thin, returning to the state when she first met Su-yu. 100 years of cultivation destroyed in a day. The white nine-tailed fox's eyes were filled with murderous intent. She was only a part of the white nine-tailed fox's soul, and could not control the body. The act of opening her eyes just now had consumed most of her soul energy, and she had entered a state of extreme weakness. Fortunately, she had successfully deceived the demon emperor and made him obey her orders. Chapter 21-22. As for Su-yu, it was only after a long while that he was sure that he was safe that he showed his face. Did we experience a dream? Mao Susu's mind was filled with images of what had just happened. The demon emperor was a clone of the 9th heaven fairy? The holy mountain's 10 heavenly suns appeared in the demon world, which was only a 6-star civilization. The cage formed by the blood lotus Tao demon's third mouthful of blood had returned to the world? All kinds of characters and things that only existed in ancient myths were displayed before his eyes. Su-yu said, "Just consider it a nightmare." To Mao Susu, it was indeed a nightmare that happened once in a lifetime. But to Su-yu, it was his life. A life where you might not see tomorrow at any time. Let's find a place to rest first. After experiencing such an intense battle, Su-yu needed to adjust his condition. Mao Susu nodded blankly. She also needed to digest everything she had seen in the palace. Hiding somewhere, Su-yu took out the heavenly orchid silver bamboo fruit, which had been completely cracked open. The supreme nail of the 9 heavens fairy had given the heavenly orchid silver bamboo the final blow. He sighed silently. This fruit had accompanied him for many years and had absorbed many enemies' attacks. In the end, he still couldn't escape the fate of death. However, just as Su-yu was sighing, he suddenly discovered that there was an inconspicuous yellow stone among the heavenly orchid silver pearls fruits. He couldn't help but be stunned. Why would there be stones in the heavenly orchid silver bamboo's fruit? Could it be that you accidentally fell in when you fell to the ground? But when he looked at the inside of the fruit, it was empty. There was nothing else apart from the stone. He tried to take out the stone. However, even though it was placed in the fruit's shell, Su-yu found that he couldn't lift it at all. No matter how much strength he exerted, the stone would not budge. This is definitely not an ordinary stone. He tried to use his soul eye, but he could not see through the interior of the stone. One had to understand that his soul power had already reached the peak of 5 crown emperors, and there were very few things he couldn't see through. It's really strange. Is there such a stone in the heavenly orchid silver bamboo's fruit? Su-yu was stunned. He tried wrapping it in the shell of the heavenly orchid silver bamboo fruit so that he could easily pick it up. However, if he were to hold the stone alone, it would be useless. The thought of throwing the stone out flashed across his mind. However, his intuition told him that this was not a good idea. After keeping it in the space of the Buddha pearl, Su-yu looked at the 9 jade spiritual pearl. The white fox had already left, so he entered the cottage. Any magic treasure should have a core that controls it. For example, the Buddha bead space's core was a space formation that was sealed within. As long as he refined it with his blood essence, he would be able to establish a connection with the formation and control the space within the Buddha bead. However, ever since he had obtained the 9-jade spiritual pearl, he had never sensed its core. Just like the 9-tailed white fox's soul, it was clearly within the 9-jade spiritual pearl, but it was unable to sense its existence. This time, the 9-tailed white fox was not around, so he could explore the unknown areas of the 9-jade spiritual pearl. With a thought, Su Yu's soul entered the 9-jade spiritual pearl. There was only one place that had yet to be explored. Thatched cottage. He entered the thatched cottage. Everything in the cottage looked the same as before. Su Yu walked to the front of the quaint bed and fixed his gaze on it. It seemed like every time it appeared, the soul of the 9-tailed white fox would appear on this bed. He stretched out his hand to touch it, and sure enough, he felt an extremely profound concept. Freeze. He froze time and space, stopping the circulating concept. Without the circulation of the concept, the thing hidden in the bed finally revealed itself. He saw a faintly glowing emerald green pearl at the head of the bed. It exuded an aura of the same origin as the 9-jade spiritual pearl. Found it! Su Yu was slightly delighted. He immediately took a drop of blood essence from his body and dripped it into the pearl. All of a sudden, the 9-jade spiritual pearl vibrated gently. For the first time, it felt connected to Su Yu's bloodline. Finally, it's completely mine. Su Yu's heart, which had been hanging for a long time, was finally relieved. He no longer had to worry about losing the 9-jade spiritual pearl. At the same time, some unfamiliar information that he had never had before surged into his mind. What? The 9-jade spiritual pearl is the 9-tailed white fox's heavenly law death eye? Su Yu's surprise was mixed with deep ecstasy. The soul of the 9-tailed white fox had returned to its body and opened one eye. It had merely glanced at the Path Master, and he had perished immediately. The horror of this was self-evident. What Su Yu could not believe was that the 9-jade spiritual pearl was actually a heavenly law death eye. No wonder it was emerald green, exactly the same as the eyes of the 9-tailed white fox. The information that followed made Su Yu click his tongue slightly. This eyeball was the infant eye of the 9-tailed white fox when it matured. The power of the eyeball was naturally not as strong as it was now. Therefore, it had been refined into a space by the 9-tailed white fox. However, the power of the eyeball had always been preserved. Once it was released, it only needed to shine on a person to form a power similar to the heavenly law death eye. Most of the Path Masters would not be able to withstand it and would perish in an instant. However, this eyeball could not be activated by just anyone. Only the blood of the Path Master could barely activate its power. Moreover, the amount of blood of the Path Master required was not a small amount. Activating it once required at least 10,000 drops of the Path Master's blood. A complete Downlord only had 10,000 drops of blood in his body. In other words, to activate this eyeball, one had to kill at least one Path Master. Su Yu could not help but regret that he had not taken the body of the multi-eyed Path Master away in time. Otherwise, he would have had the power to activate the heavenly law death eye. Ah, what a pity! Su Yu could not help but sigh. However, deep down, he was still quite satisfied. The 9-tailed white master had always hidden this piece of information because she did not want Su Yu to know the truth. Now, he had benefited from it. After doing this, Su Yu checked on the small Kylan's injuries. The demonic energy in its hind legs still remained, causing the small Kylan to be unable to recover for a long time. He tried to use the rules to separate the demonic energy. However, because of the small Kylan's unique incorporeal body, the effects of the rules were rather weak. I can only look for the magic guard named Li Bing. Su Yu comforted the small Kylan, his eyes filled with cold starlight. Returning to the outside world, Su Yu was deep in thought. His current position had been determined. It was quite far away from the Seven Knights' divine capital, close to the ancient dream Forbidden Lands. Moreover, there were 2 Pathmasters in the Seven Knights' divine capital. He had finally managed to temporarily distance himself from them. If he returned now and was discovered, it would not be so easy to escape again. At the same time, there was a sudden upheaval in the Seven Knights' divine capital. There was a powerful fluctuation within the palace, causing it to be razed to the ground. Not long after, several extremely powerful auras of the Path Masters suddenly descended upon the Seven Knights' divine capital. It was the strong Path Masters from the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce who had launched a long-planned coup. Chapter 21-23. In an instant, the Seven Knights' divine capital was engulfed in a sea of fire. The Demon Emperor had disappeared during the war, and the unknown nine-tailed white fox had escaped long before the war. Only the Seven Knights' divine capital's magic guards were left, struggling to resist the rebellion. However, the current imperial family had already provoked the resentment of the world, and there were many rebels. Many people who were born and raised in the Seven Knights' divine capital joined the rebel army to counterattack the empire. The Seven Knights' divine capital's defensive war lasted for a year, and finally, the magic guards were completely defeated. The Seven Knights' divine capital fell, and the Demon Emperor disappeared. The local fiefdoms stopped resisting and surrendered to the rebel army. After 2 years, the war in the entire demon realm finally subsided. With the support of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce, the Stone Demon Half-Ancestor ascended the throne as the new Demon Emperor. To the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce's regret, the 10 forbidden fairy artifacts passed down from generation to generation of the Demon Emperor were missing. They must have been taken away by the escaped Demon Emperor. On the first day of his ascension, the Stone Demon Half-Ancestor issued 2 orders. The first was to gather strong men and send troops to the ancient dream Forbidden Land to search for the Demon Emperor. The second was to issue a warrant for Su Yu's arrest. The first condition was something that everyone in the world could understand. There was no reason to leave the Demon Emperor alone. However, the second order was inconceivable. Almost no one knew who Su Yu was, but the second order was to capture him. It was obvious that this person was very important. However, the Stone Demon Half-Ancestor never expected that a man in a bamboo hat would enter the Seven Knights' divine capital silently. He stood in an abandoned house. In the house, several defeated soldiers were curled up. "Brother Li, you are very knowledgeable. Please give us a chance." One of the magic guards sighed. 3 years ago, the demon realm was still ruled by the Demon Emperor. The Seven Knight Divine Capital's divine guards were awe-inspiring existences that all living beings looked up to. However, things had changed with the passage of time. In just 3 short years, the famous immortal guards had become rats that everyone cursed and beat. No one dared to take them in. Wherever they went, they were reported and exposed. They could only curl up here all day, trying to struggle to survive. Li Bing was among them, and as a former city gate guard general, his status was relatively good among the magic guards. The 4 immortal guards placed their hopes on him. Li Bing was silent for a long time before he said, "I've thought about this for a long time. I think it's useless for us to escape. The whole world belongs to the king. Where can we escape to?" The 4 of them deeply agreed. Indeed, they had nowhere to run. There's only one way to continue living a dignified life in the demon realm, and that's to join the new dynasty. The 4 divine guards said, "If we could, we would have done so long ago. Why would we wait until now? But we're all wanted, it's impossible for them to accept us. That's because we haven't shown enough value." Li Bing saw through everything and said, "If we can bring something to the heart of the new dynasty, it might be a different situation. For example? For example, I know that my father-in-law is still secretly supporting the previous dynasty and carrying out a small-scale rebellion. What does brotherly mean? Of course it's to put righteousness before family." Li Bing's eyes flashed with a touch of ruthlessness. If he didn't do this, how could he gain the trust of the current dynasty? The 4 immortal guards remained silent for a moment before they said, If Brother Li is so bold and courageous, we will certainly support him. Then, shall we go now? Li Bing hesitated for a moment before he finally said, Now. The longer we delay, the more disadvantageous it will be for us. The 5 of them reached an agreement and immediately went outside. However, as soon as they came out, they were slightly shocked. Outside the house, there was a mysterious person who was completely wrapped up in clothes, standing ramrod straight. The 5 of them looked at each other. Could it be that this person had heard their conversation just now? Their eyes flashed with ruthlessness at the same time. In the previous dynasty, they were used to being ruthless, so they naturally knew what to do now. Li Bing attacked first. His eyes flashed with a cold light, and a chain of law attacked. The mysterious man did not say a word. He took out an ordinary sword and lightly slashed forward. In an instant, a dense wave of sword shadows surged forward like a tide, swallowing all 5 of them. Not even their bones were left. The sword in the mysterious man's hand could not withstand the excessively powerful sword technique and broke into several pieces. Phew! It's been 3 years and it's finally done. The man was none other than Su Yu. After learning that the 7 Knights' divine capital was in chaos, he had decisively rushed to the imperial city. He had constantly searched for Li Bing through the remaining demonic energy in the little Cauldron. Today, he had finally found him. Looking inside, he found that the demonic energy in the little Cauldron was gradually dissipating because of Li Bing's death. Once the demonic energy had dissipated, the little Cauldron could rely on its own powerful recovery ability to quickly recover. After finishing everything, Su Yu looked at the ruined imperial city and pressed down on his bamboo hat. He did not want to stay for too long. After all, he was now wanted by the stone demon half-ancestor. Just as he was about to leave, he suddenly found himself being stared at by a pair of eyes. He turned his head and looked. It was a young lady in armor who was passing by and had witnessed the whole process. Her whole body was covered in armor, revealing only a pair of eyes hidden deep under the armor. They were emitting a deep and serene light. On her armor, there was a lingering bloody smell that could not be washed away. Su Yu was slightly stunned. What a thick, murderous aura! The people he had killed in his life were not even 100th as many as this young lady. There was also a faint sense of danger coming from her body that made him wary. "Do you have any advice for me?" Su Yu asked calmly, but he was slightly vigilant. The young lady in armor shook her head. "No, I just think that your sword technique is quite powerful." After saying that, the young lady in armor rode a skeletal horse towards the imperial palace of the 7 Knights' divine capital. Staring deeply at the young lady's back, Su Yu suddenly had an indescribable feeling in his heart. After pondering for a long time, he shook his head slightly and went to the outskirts. Mao Susu said, "Have you settled it?" "I have no more worries, let's go." Everything had been settled, and it was time for them to go to the ancient dream Forbidden Lands. Little did they know that when the young lady in armor arrived at the imperial palace, she was personally received by the stone demon half-ancestor. "Welcome, young master of the Azura world," the stone demon half-ancestor said. He had just ascended to the throne, and it was time to build a good relationship with other civilizations of the same level. Now that the young master of the Azura world had arrived, he naturally could not treat her lightly. The young lady in armor was none other than Qin Xiener, who had rushed over from the faraway Azura world civilization. She had long heard that the demon realm had a new royal family, but it did not affect her. "Demon Emperor, you are too kind." After exchanging a few pleasantries, Qin Xiener went straight to the point. "I would like to pay a visit to the indestructible ancestral demon of your realm. I wonder if you can make things convenient for me." The stone demon half-ancestor was not surprised. He muttered, "Then I'm afraid the young master will have to make a trip to the ancient dream Forbidden Lands." "What is that place?" The stone demon half-ancestor smiled. "It is difficult for outsiders to enter that place, but the young master is a guest from afar. Why don't you follow us in? Someone will send you to pay a visit to the stone demon half-ancestor. Qin Xian'er smiled gratefully. Thank you. She was not worried that the stone demon half-ancestor would harm her. The current stone demon half-ancestor should maintain a friendly relationship with the surrounding civilizations before it stabilized. Chapter 21-24. On this day, the demonic aura between heaven and earth suddenly became much denser. Layers of purple demonic aura that could be seen with the naked eye filled the sky. Qin Xian'er was slightly curious. She stood on the roof and looked at the source of the demonic aura. Young Master Azura, the time has come. Please follow me. The voice of the stone demon half-ancestor was transmitted. Qin Xian'er nodded and appeared near the stone demon half-ancestor. This time, the stone demon half-ancestor personally led the team, and there were 3 cloaked people following him. Just us? Qin Xian'er asked. That's enough. All right, then I'll have to trouble the Demon King to bring me along. No problem. The 5 of them immediately came to an ancient teleportation formation in the palace. This is a special teleportation formation that leads to the ancient dream forbidden land. We can reach it in a breath's time. We can save a lot of time on the road. We'll listen to the Demon King's arrangements. Qin Xian'er said. The 5 of them stepped onto the teleportation formation and appeared in a strange world. What they saw was a colorful world. The sky was like pieces of different colored glass pieced together. Water droplets of different colors flowed in the raging river. The grass, trees, and rocks were all made of different colors. Colorful rays of light shone from the world, dyeing the demon realm, bordering it with a mixture of colors. Qin Xian'er was deeply surprised. She had seen many strange sights since coming to the absolute beginning realm, but this was the first time she had seen a world like this. She tried to pick up a small stone on the ground and crushed it into powder. She found that the powder was still colorful. Even the smallest speck of dust is colorful? Qin Xian'er's heart was filled with childishness. She wanted to pick up a few stones and bring them back to study. The stone demon half-ancestor stretched out his hand to stop her and said, Young master, it's best not to take away the evil things here. Why? Qin Xian'er put it down reluctantly. The stone demon half-ancestor revealed a serious look and said, Every grass, tree, and stone in the ancient dream forbidden land were created by the immortal ancestor demon. They contain incredible power. Once they are taken away from this place, incomprehensible changes will happen. For example? Qin Xian'er was curious. For example, it might become the person you want to see the most. Even though it will only stay for 3 breaths, it will cause a serious impact on your mind. Everyone had the most engraved person or thing in their heart. Once it appeared, it would naturally affect their mood. Especially when he couldn't see her even if he wanted to. Oh, Qin Xian'er said obediently. The stone demon half-ancestor nodded. Then, let's go. Qin Xian'er followed at the back. She rolled her eyes, and when no one was paying attention, she secretly plucked 10 blades of grass and stuffed them into her storage device. If I miss Brother Su Yu and take out a strand of it, will I be able to turn into him? Qin Xian'er pondered. On the other side, the demon emperor was hiding somewhere. He was in a sorry state and couldn't help but look at the sky and sigh. What troubled times! Even the remnant souls of the sacred mountain's 10 heavenly sons have appeared. The demon emperor's voice was filled with deep helplessness. I originally thought that by hiding in the remote demon realm, I would be able to stay away from the disputes, but I never expected that I would still be affected by it and be disturbed. The world is so big, is there really no place for me? The demon emperor looked up to the sky and sighed. I can only ask the undying ancestor demon for help. With that, he turned and vanished into the vast expanse. At a certain place, Su Yu and Mao Susu stood side by side in front of a colorful world. Ever since the demon aura became dense, they had come to this place. It was said to be the most dangerous forbidden land in the demon realm, ancient dream forbidden land. Normally, it was impossible to enter this place. Otherwise, it would be easy to get lost in the ancient memories. From then on, he was unable to extricate himself. His body rotted and his soul was annihilated. It was only when Yuan exploded and suppressed the ancient dream forbidden land that special people could enter. Mao Susu was the first to enter. Through his soul eyes, Su Yu could clearly see that there was a layer of ripples on the surface of Mao Susu's body that was difficult to see with the naked eye. That should be the unique ripple released by the Yuan fragment in Mao Susu's body. Only by being within the ripple could one not be affected by the ancient dream forbidden land to the greatest extent. In other words, it was best for Su Yu to stay within 100,000 feet of Mao Susu. Let's go. Su Yu came to Mao Susu's side. Mao Susu closed her eyes and then opened them. She looked southwest and said, "It should be there." She confirmed the location of the human skeleton. In fact, even if Mao Susu had not confirmed it, Su Yu might have been able to find it. The moment he set foot in this place, he vaguely felt a summoning voice guiding him in the direction Mao Susu had pointed. Could it really be the ancient god Jilong? Su Yu murmured to himself in disbelief. The ancient god Jilong had disappeared after participating in the Tao Abyss. Could he have perished in the demon realm? With complicated feelings in his heart, he walked forward. He had only taken a few steps when the colorful light around him dimmed slightly. Su Yu felt a faint sense of oppression. It was as if some great existence had descended into the colorful world, giving people a cold and oppressive feeling. What's wrong? Mao Susu noticed Su Yu's abnormality and asked. Su Yu's eyes narrowed slightly. Did Mao Susu not notice? He shook his head and said, "It's nothing." A few days later, Mao Susu's expression turned serious. "Brother Su, we have already entered the hinterland of the ancient dream forbidden land. The ancient dream aura here is not suppressed by the demonic energy. Do not leave my side." Su Yu nodded slightly. Just as he was about to say something, he suddenly realized that Mao Susu was looking somewhere. Su Yu followed her gaze and could not help but be stunned. He saw a figure walking by the river. It was none other than the Luoyun continent master. He smiled and waved at Mao Susu, his expression filled with kindness. Mao Susu bit her lip tightly and closed her eyes. 2 drops of tears streamed down from the corners of her eyes. When she opened her eyes again, they were filled with murderous intent. "Impersonating my father! Unforgivable!" She displayed her rules and swept them away. The Luoyun continent master turned into pieces of colorful dust on the spot and reintegrated into the world. Su Yu sighed slightly and gently patted her shoulder. Before coming here, Su Yu had already learned about it. It was a type of ancient dream dust that was unique to the ancient dream forbidden land. Occasionally, ancient dream dust would turn into the person or thing that witnesses wanted to see the most. The person Mao Susu wanted to see the most at the moment was her father, the Luoyun continent master. "I'm fine." Mao Susu shook her head firmly. "Let's continue." The 2 of them headed straight for the abyss. The 5 of them, including the stone demon half-martial ancestor, had already reached the deepest part of the ancient dream forbidden land. A towering giant tree that connected heaven and earth stood majestically between the heavens and the earth. Under the giant tree, a simple and crude hut was dug out. 2 colorful boys were cleaning at the door of the hut. Qin Xianer looked at the 2 boys curiously, her bright eyes sweeping across the interior of the hut. She was very curious about what kind of existence the legendary indestructible ancestral demon was. It was said that he was the first demon born at the beginning of the world. He had lived to this day immortal and indestructible. Moreover, he knew everything in the world and could be said to be omniscient. "May I ask if the indestructible ancestral demon is here?" The stone demon half-martial ancestor bowed respectfully to the 2 boys. One of the boys stopped and came to the table. There were 4 letters on the table. He took one of them and handed it to the stone demon half-martial ancestor. The indestructible ancestral demon knew you would come, so he left this letter for you. The stone demon half-martial ancestor looked at the cover of the letter. The words, "For the stone demon half-martial ancestor," were written in large font. He was shocked. Could the indestructible ancestral demon have predicted that he would come? He hurriedly opened the letter and saw a few lines of small words. "You've been a rebel for your entire life, you've struggled for half of your life, you've become an emperor for a time, but your death is imminent." The stone demon half-ancestor stared blankly at the words, and cold sweat involuntarily appeared on his forehead. The meaning of these 16 words was that he had been rebellious his entire life and had attached himself to the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce for half of his life. Now, he had become a demonic emperor, but he was going to die soon? The shocking 16 syllables incantation caused the stone demon half-martial ancestor to panic. "Where is the undying ancestral demon? I want to see him immediately." Stone demon half-martial ancestor naturally wanted to ask the indestructible ancestral demon where the path to survival was. The boy said, "The ancestral demon said that if the demon emperor returns, he might be able to live for another 100 years. If he insists on meeting him, he will definitely die a violent death." 100 years? The stone demon half-martial ancestor's mind trembled. How could he be willing? After a lifetime of hard work, he had finally secured his position as the demon sovereign. How could he be willing to live for only 100 years? After struggling for a long time, he gritted his teeth and said, "I want to see the ancestral demon." There was nothing in the world that the ancestral demon did not know. As long as he could open his mouth and get an answer, he might not die. The boy nodded. Before answering him, he took out a letter and handed it to Chin Siener. "The ancestral demon left a letter for you too." "Me?" Chin Siener was curious. Could the indestructible ancestral demon really predict the future? She took the letter and opened it. She saw the same 16 syllables incantation written on it. "There is a time for us to meet, but there is no time for us to meet again. Stubbornness as a blade will only harm you in the end." Chin Siener's expectant face sank little by little. It meant that there would be a time when she and Su Yu would meet again, but they would never meet again. Her stubbornness would only harm her in the end. "I don't believe it," Chin Siener said. "I want to ask the ancestral demon face to face." The boy said, "The ancestral demon said that if I see him, I will regret it." "I will not regret it. I have never regretted it," Chin Siener said firmly. With that, the boy pointed to the west. "The ancestral demon is there, waiting for an old friend and the descendant of an old friend." When everyone heard that, they could not help but be shocked. What kind of person could be referred to as an old friend by the ancestral demon? Could it be that he was also a super big shot at the level of creation? That was what they were thinking, but they did not stop galloping towards the west. The stone demon half-ancestor and Chin Siener, one for her life, and the other for love. Without exception, both were the most precious things to them. After they left, a long time passed. Purple-haired Su Yu had an evil aura about him. He walked under the giant tree and looked around with squinted eyes. "Where is the ancestral demon? I heard that he knows everything in the world. I want to ask, how should I kill a person?" The boy did not say a word. He took the third letter on the table and handed it to him. "This is a letter from the ancestral demon." Purple-haired Su Yu opened it and read it. His face changed slightly. There were only 5 words on it. "The purple clouds show the true dragon, but it will be a wedding dress." Purple-haired Su Yu crushed the letter and snorted coldly. "Nonsense, will I be a wedding dress for someone else?" Chapter 21-25. "Tell me, where is he?" The purple-haired Su Yu grabbed the boy and asked sternly. The boy sighed and said, "The ancestral demon said that if you want to live past 100 lifetimes, you have to let go of the hatred in your heart. If your obsession is not extinguished, you will be the one to die in the end. Long-winded. For the last time, where is he? The boy didn't say a word. He pointed to the west and said, "It's there. Once you leave, you'll never be able to return." Purple-haired Su-yu did not wait for him to finish his sentence and left. What was the meaning of his birth in this world? Kill Su-yu. He would complete the revenge in the depths of his soul and fill up the deep ravine of hatred. Even if he knew he would die, he still had to complete the redemption of his soul. Sha, the boy sighed and said slowly, "The most difficult to save in the world are not those who are destined to die, but those who seek their own death." At this moment, a man in a royal robe appeared in front of the giant tree. The boy didn't ask who it was. He handed him the last letter and said, "The ancestral demon left this for you." The spirit demon sovereign hesitated and flipped it open, only to see the words written on it: 10,000 tribulations descend, the heavens cannot be overturned. Know your destiny, do not force it. After reading it, the demonic beast emperor's heart sank. The demon emperor, or rather, the clone of the Empyrean fairy, looked up to the sky and sighed. Know your destiny and don't force it. It's easier said than done. Where is he? The west. The spirit demon emperor put down the letter and walked away. After traveling for several days, Su-yu and Mao Su-su finally arrived at a vast abyss. The abyss stretched for countless miles and was shaped like a giant palm print. Looking at it, Su-yu couldn't help but think about the remnant soul of the common people's path master. Just as he was about to tell the world some secret, it was suddenly destroyed by a giant palm that suddenly appeared. It was also a palm, but this one was much bigger. He gazed at it and faintly felt the strong calling from the depths of the palm print. The divine nine-dragon cauldron became more and more excited. Su-yu's curiosity had been piqued. Who was that eternally immortal human skeleton that even the heavens couldn't bury and the earth couldn't destroy? What was the little cauldron with 9 divine dragons beside him? Filled with curiosity, Su-yu was about to jump down. Suddenly, his eyes flashed as he discovered that several powerful demons were rushing over from the other side of the abyss. They weren't weak, and there were quite a few half-step Dowlords amongst them. Beijing Continent Lord, Boundless Continent Lord, South Fire Continent Lord? Su-yu did not recognize them, but Mao Su-su recognized them immediately. She said, "They are all continent masters who have received the Wunyuan fragment as a reward. I did not expect them to come to the land of remains. Let's hurry down." Mao Su-su's heart tightened. Su-yu pondered for a moment, then shook his head slightly. "Don't move first." As he raised his head, a gigantic eye appeared between the heavens and the earth. It was suspended in the vast sky, and everything within its line of sight was reflected in Su-yu's eyes. In his eyes, the 3 half-step Dowlords had nervous expressions on their faces as they cautiously entered the abyss and approached the center of the abyss. The journey was smooth beyond imagination, and they didn't encounter any accidents, until they were within 100,000 feet of the palm print. Suddenly, a tangible ripple appeared and swept past them. The 3 continent lords immediately stopped and did not move. Su-yu was slightly surprised, and just as he was wondering what they were going to do, a scene that caused his pupils to contract appeared. The 3 continent masters actually turned into dust at the same time. Without any warning or indication, he died just like that. Not even a wisp of their souls managed to escape. Was that the aura of the remains? Any living creature, including the half-step Dowlords, would be instantly killed by the aura left behind by the corpses. When the Luoyun continent's master said this, Su-yu was still skeptical about it. Now that he had witnessed it with his own eyes, he knew that every word he said was true. Within 100,000 feet, anyone who was not human would die. Su-yu was not the only one who noticed this. The people who carried the Wunyuan fragment and their companions, who were hidden in various parts of the abyss, also noticed this. The death of the 3 continent masters was a great shock to them. Right at this moment, an extraordinary martial aura suddenly descended on the side of the abyss. They appeared openly, and they did not bother to conceal their auras. When Suyu saw this person through the heavenly eyes, he furrowed his brows slightly. Unexpectedly, it's the stone demon half-martial ancestor? He actually came to the abyss in person? What a surprise! The stone demon half-martial ancestor saw the death of the 3 continent masters from afar, and his expression changed drastically. He had followed the direction pointed out by the boy to this place. How could it be here? The words of the 3 mysterious people behind him were filled with indescribable fear. The existence of this indestructible corpse in the ancient dream Forbidden Lands was known to the higher-ups of the demon dimension. The stone demon half-martial ancestor was no exception. His eyes flickered deeply. Could it be that the ancestor was in there? But how were they going to enter? If a non-human entered, they would definitely die. Just as they were pondering this, there was a sudden change in the center of the abyss. Layers upon layers of ripples turned into a flight of stairs that extended to Suyu's vicinity. The stone demon half-martial ancestor and the others were slightly surprised, and they immediately noticed the presence of Suyu and Mao Susu. Fortunately, both of them were wearing deep camouflage, and their identities had not been seen through. The center of the abyss has set up stairs for the 2 of them? An absurd thought appeared in the stone demon half-martial ancestor's mind. He shook his head. It must be a coincidence. He and the other 4 people came to the stairs, and the rest of the hidden people who carried the 1 yuan fragment also came. Before long, more than 30 people appeared at the stairs. Even the weakest among them was a half-step Daolord. Only Suyu and a few others were at the level of the 5 organs martial emperor. Everyone was talking to each other, staring at the stairs, bewildered. The bridge of fate will ferry those who are fated. Those who can come here, I will answer a question for free. All of a sudden, a strange voice reverberated between heaven and earth. The voice was so old that it was impossible to tell whether it was a man or a woman, and it was filled with the boundless breath of time. As soon as the voice spoke, everyone felt as if their lifespans were being taken away. Suyu's expression changed slightly, and he pressed down on Mao Susu quietly, using the law of life to maintain her life. Everyone's feelings were not wrong. Their lives were indeed being taken away by this sentence. Although it was slight, a little bit made a mickle. The sentence just now had taken away no less than 100 years of life. What a powerful law of time and space. Although he has not achieved the path, he is more powerful than me. Suyu was secretly surprised. This was the first time he had encountered a master of the law of time. The other party could change the state of time with a casual sentence, causing the listener to lose several years of time. Suyu was far from being able to do that. It's the indestructible ancestor demon. The stone demon half-martial ancestor's face changed slightly. He was really deep inside. Did he have to go through just like that? His eyes flickered as he stared at one of the continent masters and said, "You, try it." He took out the identity of the demon emperor and gave the order immediately. The continent master's mouth was bitter. Why would the demon emperor come in person, and why would he risk his life to enter such a dangerous place? He braced himself and walked up the stairs, slowly approaching the center of the abyss. When he was about 10,000 feet away, everyone's eyes were fixed on him, for fear that they would miss the crucial moment. As soon as he stepped into the 10,000 feet range, the expected aura of death did not appear. The continent master's heart relaxed slightly, and he stepped forward even more cautiously. However, not long after he stepped forward, something strange happened. Suddenly, colorful bugs appeared on both sides of the stairs. They lay on the edge of the stairs, letting out ear-piercing screams. The screams reached his soul. The continent master suddenly felt as if thousands of bugs had drilled into the depths of his soul and were screaming. His eyes rolled back and he was knocked out by the bugs. He rolled down the stairs, and his whole body was covered in blood. Everyone present breathed a sigh of relief, and at the same time, they all had the hope of challenging. The aura of the skeleton meant that they would not be able to approach it, but now it had become possible. "Next, I'll go," a middle-aged man with a mustache in a scholar's robe volunteered. His face was filled with anxiety and deep confidence. "The Water Cloud Continent's master, who is said to have the highest attainment in the soul? Looks like the Water Cloud Continent's master can tell that the bug's attacks are aimed at the soul, giving him a huge loophole," someone said with envy. "That's right, it just so happens to be aimed at the soul. If I had known, I would have done everything I could to get some soul defense treasures. Sigh. I was just one step behind. Let's see if the Water Cloud Continent's master can pass first." The Water Cloud Continent's master smiled faintly and took a step forward. With his body as the center, a solid soul halo appeared. With this halo, he could defend against the vast majority of soul attack. He slowly walked until he was 10,000 feet away, took a slight breath, and then suddenly accelerated, rushing forward. Gigi instantly, the bugs on both sides let out sharp screeches. A series of soul attacks landed on the soul halo around his body, but all of them were blocked, and he wasn't hurt at all. The Water Cloud Continent's master was overjoyed, and he increased his speed, hoping to leave the stairs as soon as possible and reach the skeleton first. However, at this moment, a group of bugs of different shapes crawled out from both sides, opening their mouths and letting out sharp screeches. The Water Cloud Continent's master's figure instantly stiffened, and he revealed a pained expression before clutching his head and roaring in pain. Finally, he rolled down the stairs and fainted on the spot. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. The Water Cloud Continent's master was a half-step Tao Lord with powerful attainments in the soul, yet he was unable to resist? Then how many people present could pass? "Why don't I give it a try?" Suddenly, the armored girl next to the stone demon half-ancestor said thoughtfully. The stone demon half-ancestor sized up the girl and said, "Are you sure you can do it? If I can't, then I'll have to trouble the demon monarch to pick me up." The girl smiled and stepped onto the stairs in front of everyone's eyes. She delicately stepped into the 10,000 feet range, and many five-colored bugs began to scream. The piercing screeches fell into the girl's ears, but she did not seem to hear them, as if they did not harm her soul at all. What powerful soul energy! Her soul has probably become indestructible through endless slaughter, and she doesn't fear ordinary soul attacks. The stone demon half-ancestor's eyes flashed as he appraised. The girl easily passed through the first stage of the insect cries. She quickly arrived at the place where the Water Cloud Continent's master had fallen. Just as she arrived, more five-colored bugs crawled out from both sides and screeched. The girl frowned slightly. Noisy. Chapter 21-26. This scene caused everyone to be extremely shocked. The stone demon half-ancestor was also shocked. This generation's Azura World young master is unbelievably strong. How many living beings did she kill to obtain such a terrifying aura? Everyone looked at the young girl's back, their eyes filled with fear. Even Suyu had a pensive look on his face. This young girl, whom he had met once, was quite powerful. However, the young girl had only walked half the distance. The rest of the journey would be even more dangerous. When she walked out of the third stage, more multicolored insects appeared on both sides of her. The sharp screeches reached the people at the stairs. They furrowed their brows, feeling a sharp pain in their souls even though they were so far away. The strength of the soul attack that the young girl had endured was obvious. As expected, even the young girl furrowed her brows, and a pained look appeared on her face. However, she was fine. She just blinked her cold eyes, took out a long blood halberd, and stabbed it into the ground. All of a sudden, the screeches were sucked in like a bottomless pit. The young girl with the blood halberd stepped into the final stage. As long as she passed this stage, she would reach the other end of the stairs. As soon as she stepped into it, a giant insect suddenly appeared at the end of the stairs. It was 1,000 times larger than an ordinary insect. A mouth pressed against the end of the stairs, opened its mouth, and let out an unimaginably violent hiss. Even the ear-piercing screech could injure a half-step Dao Lord, let alone the powerful soul attack contained within it. If an ordinary half-step Dao Lord encountered it, he wouldn't just be knocked unconscious. Instead, his soul would be shattered and he would die. As expected, the young girl was facing a great challenge. The blood halberd in her hand was no longer useful, and it couldn't absorb the sound at all. Her eyes were filled with pain, and she couldn't even hold on to the blood halberd in her hand. Her body trembled uncontrollably as she roared. Just as she was about to encounter danger, a loud phoenix cry that was comparable to that of the insect's screech suddenly came from her body. A pitch-black shadow of a phoenix could be vaguely seen flashing behind her. The two sounds were both low-key, and the young girl felt a little better. She clenched her teeth, endured the sharp pain in her soul, and walked step by step to the end of the stairs. When she reached the end, the giant insect stopped its screech. The young girl's face was pale, but she knelt on the ground and gasped for breath. She looked around and heard the voice say, "Wait until everyone has passed, then I will answer your questions." The girl nodded and sat down to rest as if nothing had happened. At this moment, everyone's expression changed greatly. "This place isn't fated with me. It's best if I don't force it." Many of the half-step Dowlords with pale faces chose to leave without hesitation. The giant worm's roar had crushed everyone's hopes. Even though they were separated by such a great distance, they could still feel the extreme pain in their souls. It was not hard to imagine what would happen if they were in front of that giant worm. He would probably die a horrible death right away, right? In the blink of an eye, there were less than 6 people left. Among them were Su Yu and Mao Susu, as well as the 4 stone demon half-ancestors. Just as the stone demon half-ancestor was about to give it a try, a shocking evil aura suddenly approached from afar like a wave. "All of you, get out of the way!" With an angry roar, a purple-haired young man covered in evil energy stepped onto the stairs. The stone demon half-ancestor was unable to dodge in time and was almost kicked to the ground. His face was filled with anger, but he did not stop them. He also wanted to see how other people passed the stairs so that he could learn from them. When the purple-haired Su Yu stepped onto the first stage, countless multicolored worms started hissing and launching soul attacks at him. "Humph!" and the purple-haired Su Yu snorted coldly and knocked all of the worms unconscious. Then, he stepped onto the second stage. Then, an even sharper hissing sound echoed. The purple-haired Su Yu furrowed his brows and snorted again, knocking all of the worms unconscious. When he reached the third stage, the louder hissing sound of the worms finally made the purple-haired Su Yu feel threatened. He stopped and released a powerful purple evil energy to block the hissing sound. When he reached the fourth stage, the giant worm appeared again. It opened its mouth and roared, while a terrifying soul attack was launched once again. The purple-haired Su Yu looked like he was in pain, but he still used the 9 Suns Cosmos sword formation to extinguish the giant roar. Only then did he step onto the stairs. He swept the surroundings with his gaze and immediately discovered the armored girl. He then asked in a stern voice, "Where is the undying ancestral demon? Where is she?" The armored girl looked up, and her beautiful eyes were fixed on the purple-haired Su Yu. She could not move her eyes away. "I asked you a question. Are you deaf?" The armored girl came to her senses, and her eyes were filled with deep suspicion. The Su Yu in front of her was indeed Su Yu, but she did not know why he gave her a strange feeling. His tone and character were not like Su Yu at all. Has Brother Su Yu been possessed? Qin Xianer thought to herself. Is Brother Su Yu in the great beginning realm? If his body has been taken away, then his soul. She thought of the undying ancestral demon's 16-word mantra, "We may meet again, but we may never meet again." Her pretty face instantly turned pale. Could it be that this was the time for them to meet again? She could only meet Brother Su Yu's body, but his soul could never be seen again. This was what he meant by never meet again. She stood there absent-mindedly, her mind crumbling. Seeing that he could not get an answer, the purple-haired Suyu snorted coldly and walked around with his hands clasped behind his back. He looked like he would fly into a rage at any moment. On the other side, the stone demon half-ancestor had roughly determined the strength of the soul attack in the 4 stages. "I'll go next." The stone demon half-ancestor stepped onto the first stage. He casually stuck a soul defense charm on his body and stepped onto the second step as if nothing had happened. In the face of the more powerful soul attack, he casually stuck a few more charms on his body. After slightly frowning, he stepped onto the third stage. Creak, creak. The water-like soul attack came one after another, and the stone demon half-ancestor's face was filled with pain. His body shook, and the yellow robe on his body was completely shattered, revealing his body, which was made of stone. With a low roar, he turned into a mass of debris and rushed from the third step to the fourth step. Roar. The giant worm immediately let out a terrifying roar. The stone demon half-ancestor roared in pain and rolled on the ground in agony. In the end, he still could not pass the fourth stage. However, at this moment, one of the 3 mysterious people who came with the stone demon half-ancestor tried to rush up the stairs. However, the moment he stepped on the stairs, the giant worm's roar instantly doubled. The stone demon half-ancestor fainted on the spot. It turned out that the stairs had a reaction. If 2 or more people passed at the same time, the level of the worm would increase exponentially. The poor stone demon half-ancestor was implicated by his companion, and he staggered and fell down from the stairs. Fortunately, he had several soul charms on him to protect him, so he only fainted and did not die. The mysterious person who had climbed up the stairs hesitated for a moment, then continued to step forward. However, as soon as he appeared, all the worms on the stairs changed. In the first stage, the weakest worms were all replaced by the giant worms at the end of the stairs. There were more than 1,000 of them. With so many giant worms roaring angrily, anyone below the Path Master level would die. However, the mysterious person's body just trembled a little, and he continued on to the second step as if nothing had happened. This scene caused everyone's expression to change drastically. Suyu's pupils shrank fiercely. Path Master level strong men? If that mysterious person was a Path Master, then the 2 mysterious people in front of him were also Path Masters. The worms that appeared on the second step were giants, and each of them was 100 times larger than the previous giant worms. Tens of thousands of worms roared angrily. Even though the mysterious person was a Path Master, his expression finally changed, and a pained expression appeared on his face under the cloak. However, he gritted his teeth and persisted on to the third stage. However, the worms on the third stage were even more powerful, and they were 100 times larger than the previous ones. As they roared in unison, the Path Master was forced to display a mysterious concept to protect his body. Even so, his body was not feeling well, and his footsteps were sluggish as he stepped onto the fourth stage. However, the giant worms on the fourth stage were even more terrifying. They were giant worms that were as large as the entire abyss. Floating in midair, they opened their mouths and roared at the mysterious person. The Path Master could not help but scream in pain. Then, his eyes closed and he collapsed onto the ground. A dignified Path Master had his soul shattered, and he died just like that. It turned out that the stairs increased the attacking power of the intruder according to his cultivation level. The arrival of a Path Master level strong man meant that the intruder's attack was targeted at the Path Master. It was not easy to break through just because one was a Path Master. However, the stairs that the indestructible ancestral demon had set up could destroy a Path Master. So what cultivation level was the indestructible ancestral demon at? The remaining 2 mysterious people stared at the stairs with fear in their eyes, and they did not dare to step forward recklessly. Suyu looked at Mao Susu and said, "Let's go." Mao-Su-Su paused and said, I can't, can I? If two people crossed at the same time, the danger would be multiplied, and they could not cross it at all. Close your eyes, Su-Yu said calmly. Mao-Su-Su closed her eyes obediently, and let Su-Yu lead her. Soon, Su-Yu stepped onto the first stage of the stairs with Mao-Su-Su. His actions immediately attracted the attention of the armored young lady and the purple-haired Su-Yu, who had already crossed. The armored young lady was slightly surprised. You are very courageous. You know that it is dangerous to cross at the same time, but you still dare to take such a risk? The purple-haired Su-Yu sneered disapprovingly. That is not courageous, but reckless. He did not even bother to see how the intruder died, and he paced back and forth in annoyance. On the stairs, Su-Yu released his soul energy, and protected Mao-Su-Su within it. The armored young lady was surprised, and she thought to herself, isn't this person too daring? Not only did he cross with another person, but he also split his soul energy to protect another person? Is he serious? Su-Yu and Mao-Su-Su stepped onto the first stage of the stairs, and immediately, a large number of sharp cries of the insects could be heard. They were not pathmasters, so the insects they encountered were naturally not very powerful. However, compared to the armored young lady and the purple-haired Su-Yu, they were more than 3 times more powerful, which was equivalent to the third stage. What surprised the armored young lady was that Su-Yu acted as if nothing had happened, and he pulled Mao-Su-Su straight through the first stage to the second stage. Chapter 21-27. Despite the roar, Su-Yu didn't move at all. He didn't feel that his soul was injured at all. The armored girl stood up abruptly and said in disbelief, "Is he a path master?" She had personally experienced the power of the giant worm in the fourth stage. How could he pass it so easily? In the third stage, the worm that appeared was even more powerful. It was about 10 times more powerful than the giant worm. If she was roared by it, she wouldn't be able to block it and would definitely die. However, the man in the bamboo hat didn't care about her at all. In the fourth stage, a powerful giant worm that had almost reached the level of a path master let out a fierce roar. Only then did Su-Yu stop slightly. His body trembled a little, but it was only a slight tremble. Then, he left as if nothing had happened. When he reached the end, he stood in front of them. Your swordsmanship is not only outstanding, but your soul is also unimaginably powerful, the armored girl said. Su-Yu replied calmly, "You flatter me." Then, he looked at the purple-haired Su-Yu. He didn't expect that the purple-haired Su-Yu would appear here again. He thought he wouldn't get another chance to kill him. The purple-haired Su-Yu was really courting death. When the 3 of them arrived, the undying ancestral demon still hadn't shown up. Just as they were wondering, a powerful aura suddenly rushed over from afar. The owner of that aura was a middle-aged man in a golden robe. He stepped onto the stairs without saying a word and was immediately attacked by the giant worm at the level of a path master. However, just like Su-Yu, he wasn't afraid of soul attacks at all. After passing through 4 stages, he appeared at the end of the stairs with a calm expression. Apart from Su-Yu, who knew what was going on, the rest of the people had no idea. The middle-aged man in front of them was none other than the powerful former demon emperor. To be exact, she was the Empyrean fairy. Her clone was a part of her soul, so it was naturally more powerful than an ordinary path master. The purple-haired Su-Yu looked at the demon emperor with fear and stepped back slightly. Right at this moment, a voice that seemed to have penetrated through the ages resounded. 5 fated people, come in. A door opened in the colorful world behind them. The 5 of them hesitated for a moment before entering. As a result, what they saw was a completely different real world. A scorched land came into view. This place had existed for who knew how many years. However, there were still scorching flames that hadn't been extinguished. In the center of the scorched earth, a green-robed human stood upright with one hand pointing towards the sky. He opened his eyes and looked straight into the depths of the heavenly court. His eyes were filled with endless contempt, as if he was mocking the existence in the dark. He just stood there, one finger pointing to the sky, smiling at the heavens. Even if he had died countless years ago, even if his soul had perished in the cycle of reincarnation, even if only a broken body was left, he still maintained the posture of despising the heavens. No matter how time passed, no matter how the universe changed, it would never be buried, it would never be erased. Even in death, he would not submit to the heavens and earth. As he looked at this person, Su Yu suddenly felt as if time was flowing backward, and an ancient scene uncontrollably appeared around him. In a moving painting, a green-robed human stood in the void. There were countless corpses around him, and blood dyed the sky and ground red. He stood in the mountain of corpses and the sea of blood, laughing in all directions. Chaotic beings, you slaughtered billions of my human race. Today, I will return you 980 million. As he laughed, he slapped his palms together, causing the void to tremble. Shock waves of the void surged out and swept towards a small mountain that was faintly discernible in the sky. In the hill, 10 figures covered in layers of halos stood high above, looking down indifferently. Among them, 9 were silent, like giant rocks that had never moved since ancient times. Only the one on the far right panicked slightly, revealing 9 tails behind him. The dust of the primordial world, the sand of the universe, the heavens and the earth will all return to dust. I am just sending them to the final destination of life in advance. The 9-tailed stone man, like the supreme ruler of heaven and earth, floated down. She opened a pair of green eyes. One was born in an instant and the other was destroyed in an instant. It was as if each of her eyes contained death and rebirth. Under the alternation of life and death, the green-robed man's body became blurry. He was about to be wiped out under the cycle of life and death. The green-robed man looked up to the sky and laughed. Even if I am dust, even if I am sand, I will control the cycle of reincarnation alone. Mortal life cauldron, rise. With a loud roar, he took out a small bronze cauldron. The cauldron gathered the unwillingness and unyielding will of the common people. It was filled with the roars and cries of all living beings, and gathered the slaughter of the world's heroes. He held the small cauldron in his hand and pushed it down with both hands. The small cauldron fell from the sky, suppressing the 9-tailed white fox within. The slaughter of the common people destroyed most of the 9-tailed white fox's soul. One of her stone tails was also destroyed. Her remains fell into the boundless sea of nothingness. After killing a stone man, the green-robed man shook his sleeves. The mortal life cauldron spun and smashed towards the supreme sacred mountain. Boom! The sacred mountain shook violently. A female stone man fell from the sky, smashing into the nothingness and breaking into pieces. Then, it fell silent in the sea of nothingness. The remaining 8 stone men swayed in unison. 8 supreme wills descended, suppressing the mortal life cauldron. The endless wills of the common people within the cauldron roared and resisted. Suddenly, the world was turned upside down and yin and yang were reversed. The turbulence of time and space engulfed the boundless world, destroying the nothingness into chaos. Tens of thousands of living beings were buried, and not only did the nothingness return to chaos. The world was pitch black. The scene ended there, but Su Yu's mind was still in shock. What was that? He had only glanced at the remains of the green-robed man, and the scene of a battle from countless years ago appeared in his mind. Was that mountain the legendary sacred mountain? Were the 10 stone men the legendary stone-born son of heaven? Was the 9-tailed white fox whose soul was destroyed by the will of the common people? Who was the female stone man who fell from the sacred mountain and broke into pieces? Where was she at this moment? What did it mean for the world to return to chaos and darkness? He seemed to understand a lot, but he was even more at a loss. The world has its own lifespan, and the sacred mountain will never be destroyed. What you see is only a small era passed by the sacred mountain. A voice filled with the meaning of time fell into his ears. Suyu looked over, only to realize that there was a person standing in front of the remains of the green-robed man. It was not accurate to say that it was a person. Suyu could not feel his existence. Even his soul, even his aura, did not exist. In fact, he did not even have a shadow. Was that a living being? The mysterious fairy of the 9 heavens looked fearful. She bowed deeply. Greetings, indestructible ancestral demon. He was the rumored ancient being that had existed since the creation of the world, the indestructible ancestral demon. A being that could live as long as the world, immortal and indestructible. Suyu's pupils shrank slightly. At the same time, he felt very strange. Others might not be able to detect it, but as a master of time and space, Suyu could clearly feel that the time and space around the indestructible ancestral demon was very strange. It was incompatible with the current time and space. Ha ha! The indestructible ancestral demon's back was facing them, but the 5 of them could not see the face of the indestructible ancestral demon from their own point of view. They could only see the exact same back view. Some of you should be here, and some of you shouldn't, but since you are here, it is all destined, the indestructible ancestral demon said. The purple-haired Suyu's evil aura was awe-inspiring. He said, I am not here to listen to your tricks. I ask you, how do you kill Suyu? Beside him, Suyu's heart skipped a beat, and he looked at the indestructible ancestral demon. I once said that if you pass the stairs, I will answer one of your questions for free, the indestructible ancestral demon said. The only one who can kill him is the stone-born son of heaven. The purple-haired Suyu frowned. Why can't I kill him? This is your second question, the indestructible ancestral demon said. If you want to know, I will take away your most cherished thing. The purple-haired Suyu laughed. As long as you can take it away. Tell me why. The indestructible ancestral demon said leisurely, because he is a holy mortal body. The holy mortal body was born from the common people and is protected by the vitality of the common people. No one can destroy it. Only the stone-born son of heaven born on the holy mountain can destroy the vitality of the common people. After listening, the purple-haired Suyu said disdainfully, What bullsh** *t holy mortal body? I don't believe I can't destroy him. The indestructible ancestral demon said, Then, I will take away your most cherished thing. Ha ha, as long as you can take it away. The purple-haired Suyu did not care. He was a combination of souls, and he never knew what he cherished. How could he take away something? Fine. The indestructible ancestral demon said. Suddenly, the purple-haired Suyu's soul was forcibly separated from his body. His body automatically appeared beside the indestructible ancestral demon. My body. The purple-haired Suyu was shocked. However, as soon as the words left his mouth, his heart sank. Wasn't this body what he cared about the most? From the moment he was born, he had wanted to destroy Suyu and use this body to become the real Suyu. He had almost forgotten that he had something he cherished, and he had always had it. Give it back to me. The purple-haired Suyu roared and rushed forward, trying to enter the soul again. However, the indestructible ancestral demon said lightly, The question has been answered, you can leave now. Without any movement, the purple-haired Suyu's soul was directly transported out of the ancient dream Forbidden Lands. Who's next? Me. Mao Susu said immediately, I want to know, why did Father ask me to come here? The indestructible ancestral demon nodded lightly. He wanted you to copy the heavenly writings, comprehend them, and become the Path Master. Mao Susu looked at the heavenly writings on the remains and immediately committed them to memory. Any more questions? Mao Susu shook her head. If she continued to ask, she would have to pay the price. Then leave. As soon as she finished speaking, Mao Susu also left. Who's next? The Demon Emperor stood up and said, I want to know where is the best place to stay. Please enlighten me, ancestral demon. The indestructible ancestral demon said hoarsely, You don't know the true face of Mount Lu, because you are in this mountain. When you return to the palace, when a person clad in 9-colored light arrives, he will point you the way. Remember, don't force things. Thank you, ancestral demon. The demon emperor bowed and then disappeared. In the end, only Su Yu and the armored girl were left. Who's next? Su Yu and the armored girl looked at each other. Su Yu wanted to know the safety of Qin Xianer and Xia Jingyu, and he couldn't wait any longer. However, just as he was about to speak, there seemed to be an invisible giant hand enveloping the world, causing the colorful world to dim slightly. He couldn't speak. Looking at the armored girl, he said, Let me. At this moment, Su Yu's chest was beating wildly, and he had a very bad feeling. Chapter 21-28. What do you want to know? The indestructible ancestral demon asked. The armored girl said, I have 2 questions. The indestructible ancestral demon paused and reiterated, I will only answer 1 question for free. The second question will take away your most cherished possession. Think about it carefully before you ask. After thinking about it, the armored girl said, I understand. I have 2 questions. One is to ask about the object, to repay a person's years of help. The other is to ask about the person. I want to know if he is still alive in this world. As she spoke, her eyes were fixed on the body of the purple-haired Su Yu. At this moment, she just wanted to know if Su Yu was still alive. The indestructible ancestral demon sighed, as if he was regretting something. He said, This is the general trend. I have tried my best to stop it. You ask away. The armored girl didn't quite understand what the indestructible ancestral demon meant. The thing I want to ask about is the Azura Emperor seal. The indestructible ancestral demon was silent for a long time. He said, Why don't you ask about the person first? He asked again. The armored girl thought about it and was a little puzzled. She murmured, Strange, why would I ask about the object first? She was most concerned about Su Yu at the moment. She had never cared about the Azura Emperor seal. But somehow, there was a strange force that was guiding her, causing her to ask about things for no apparent reason. She obviously wanted to ask about Su Yu. However, the question had been asked. The indestructible ancestral demon seemed to be restricted by some rules and could only answer, The Azura Emperor seal is in the hands of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce's 7 Stars President, Tai Wuhan. 7 Stars President Tai Wuhan, the armored girl murmured softly, remembering it. Nodding, the armored girl was about to speak when the indestructible ancestral demon said, Do you know what you cherish the most? Once he finished asking, he would take it away. The armored girl tilted her head and thought about it, then said with a smile, My most cherished person is that person. If you can bring him to the great beginning realm, I am looking forward to it. The indestructible ancestral demon sighed and said, Ask away, who do you want to ask? He had tried to stop her again and again, but there was a force that was pushing them forward. The armored girl took a deep breath and said, I want to ask, is Su Yu still alive? Her heart was beating like a fawn, filled with deep anticipation and apprehension. Didn't they spend so much effort to come to the demon realm from the distant Azura world just to ask the Undying clan about brother Su Yu, whom they had never been able to forget? She didn't ask to see him, she just wanted him to be safe. In the end, she still managed to ask her question. At the same time, the invisible palm that was pressing down on Su Yu dissipated, allowing him to move again. Su Yu stared blankly at the armored girl, thousands of thoughts flashing through his mind. Who was she? She had a murderous aura around her, and she knew him. Could she be the pearl female corpse? The indestructible ancestral demon monster looked up at the sky and said, Far away on the horizon, but close at hand. The armored girl was startled and looked at Su Yu, who was standing beside the indestructible ancestral demon. I'm asking about his soul. The armored girl was not satisfied with this answer. The indestructible ancestral demon replied, "Yes, it's right in front of us." It was only then that the armored girl moved her gaze away from Su Yu and turned to look at the plaited bamboo hat man. Her eyes were filled with confusion as she asked, "You are?" Su Yu slowly took off his bamboo hat as he said, "Can you let me know who you are? Why are you looking for me?" The armored girl thought for a moment, then took off her own armor as well. Both of them revealed their true appearances at the same time. The moment they saw each other, they were both stunned. Their gazes seemed to have traveled through a long time and space to meet at a fixed point in time and space. It also seemed like two gazes that had always been connected were reconnected after being separated for decades. In the Taotai cage, the eyes that were separated by life and death finally reappeared after being separated by a long time and space. "Brother! Su Yu!" Qin Xianer couldn't believe her eyes. It turned out that she had met Su Yu a long time ago. It was like two shooting stars that were looking for each other and missing each other, but they passed each other by. She smiled and threw herself into Su Yu's arms. Seeing those familiar eyes, Qin Xianer's heart, which had been hanging for decades, was finally relieved. Great, he was still alive. Su Yu was stunned for a long time, and his heart was filled with joy. When he came back to his senses, he threw away his bamboo hat and hugged the person in his arms tightly. His eyes were filled with tears as he murmured, "I'm not dreaming, am I?" Qin Xianer's eyes were already filled with tears. Choking with sobs, she said mischievously, "You are dreaming, a dream just like mine." At this moment, Su Yu felt that his wandering heart had suddenly become unprecedentedly peaceful. He had worked hard for decades and traveled through the great beginning era to find her and Jingyu. He never thought that happiness would come so suddenly. The two of them hugged each other tightly. They wished that this moment would be frozen forever, so that they could hug each other until the end of time and never be separated again. "Hey, you should have listened to my letter and not come to see me." The indestructible ancestral demon's long sigh broke the silence between the two of them. Su Yu suddenly woke up and said, "What do you want to take from Xianer?" He saw with his own eyes that the purple-haired Su Yu's body was taken away easily and without any resistance. The indestructible ancestral demon said, "I have already said that it is the thing that she thinks is the most precious." Su Yu's heart suddenly tightened, and he protected Qin Xianer behind him. Qin Xianer shook her head. "It doesn't matter. Isn't the most precious thing that I have the bloodline of the 9 Nether Phoenix? Take it if you want, as long as I can be with brother Su Yu." She hugged Su Yu's arm contentedly. As long as she could be with Su Yu, she was willing to lose everything. However, what she got was a long silence from the indestructible ancestral demon. The silence was extremely ominous, which made Qin Xianer's face stiffen little by little. She said, "Do you want my life?" The indestructible ancestral demon shook his head and said word by word, "The thing that you cherish the most is your memory, the bits and pieces of memory about Su Yu." "Memory?" Qin Xianer was stunned. The indestructible ancestral demon said, "Yes, from now on, Su Yu will be erased from your memory forever. Even if he stands in front of you, you will not recognize him." Qin Xianer's whole body was cold. She said, How could that be the thing that I cherish the most?" "Words can lie, but your heart can't. Your heart tells me that the thing that you cherish the most is the bits and pieces of memory about Su Yu." Qin Xianer felt an inexplicable fear, a fear that she was about to lose something very, very important. If she did not have Su Yu's memory, then on Xinyue Island, who saved her from the snake venom? Who was it that held her hand and bowed to her father? Who defied the will of heaven and married her in front of all the people of the Zhenlong continent? Would it be a blank? She fell into boundless fear, as if she was trapped in a giant whirlpool. She had always forgotten that the most precious thing in her body was never her bloodline, not even her life. It was the memory that she would rather die than forget. The memory of Su Yu. No. Qin Xianer shook her head. Can you replace it with something else? My eyes, my hands, or even my body? You can take anything but my memories, she pleaded, her eyes filled with panic. Su Yu's pupils shrank to the size of a needle, and he said, Indestructible ancestral demon, take my most precious thing. The indestructible ancestral demon asked, Do you know who you cherish the most? Xia Jingyu. The first thought that came to his mind was that he missed Xia Jingyu even more. If you want to know, you can test it, right? The indestructible ancestral demon said. Suddenly, from Qin Xianer's space storage device, a small blade of grass flew out. She had picked 10 of them before, intending to keep them and take them out when she missed Su Yu. Once these small blades of grass left the 5-colored space, they would transform into the person that she longed to see the most. The grass flew in front of Su Yu. This scorched land was no longer part of the 5-colored land. Once taken out, it could change. Suddenly, Qin Xianer grabbed the grass and shook her head with a forced smile. There is no need to test it. She knew that Su Yu would think of Xia Jingyu first. She was brother Su Yu's favorite. However, she did not want Su Yu to feel guilty, so she stopped him. However, it was useless to stop him with a palm. The small blade of grass collapsed into bits of 5-colored light, and then recondensed into a figure that appeared in front of Su Yu. Qin Xianer had no time to stop him. She could only silently bow her head, not daring to look at the figure. No matter how she compared herself, she was no match for Xia Jingyu. However, from the corner of her eyes, she suddenly saw that the figure was not the same height as she imagined Xia Jingyu to be. She could not help but wonder if there was a third woman in brother Su Yu's heart. She turned her head to look and was stunned. He saw a petite, adorable, and mischievous young girl giggling at Su Yu. At this moment, Qin Xianer froze, motionless, as if she had been electrocuted. She covered her red lips with both hands, unable to believe the scene before her eyes. The first person Su Yu saw was her. It was her, Qin Xianer. Even Su Yu himself did not expect that it would be Qin Xianer. Could it be that deep in his heart, he missed this little girl the most? What you can't have is what you desire the most, and the most ordinary may be the most cherished, the indestructible ancestral demon said meaningfully. She and Qin Xianer were already husband and wife, but their relationship with Xia Jingyu was complicated and unpredictable. Could it be that, because of this, he missed Xia Jingyu so much that he neglected Qin Xianer? Even if you bear it on his behalf, what you will lose is still the little memories of the past between you two. The indestructible ancestral demon sighed. Su Yu came back to his senses and stared at her. Must I give up the most cherished thing? Who set the rules? The indestructible ancestral demon said faintly, It's the great path of absolute beginning, which is above all living beings. The great path of absolute beginning is constant, and there are gains and losses. If you get what you want from the great path will also get what it needs from you. I am just a middleman, and I cannot make decisions on behalf of the great path. Su Yu did not believe in the great path. Countless experiences had taught him that the things that restricted all living beings were man-made. Chapter 21-29. Qin Xianer, I once warned you not to be too obsessed. Otherwise, you will destroy yourself in the end, the indestructible ancestral demon said lightly. Qin Xianer's eyes turned black. It was her own memory that was constantly blurring. No. I don't want to forget brother Su Yu. Qin Xianer hugged Su Yu tightly and cried. Su Yu's memory was the spiritual pillar that kept her alive until today. How could she forget it? How could she dare to forget it? Su Yu was furious. Time and space freeze. He pointed at the indestructible ancestral demon, but the time and space freeze had no effect on him. The indestructible ancestral demon smiled bitterly. It is not me who is taking away her memory, but the great path of heaven. Your attainments in time and space are far from being able to compete with the great path. I don't believe it. Su Yu's left and right eyes shot out rays of light that shrouded Qin Xianer. Time and space reverse. He made her lost memory come back in time. However, it was useless. A force that made Suyu feel desperate was methodically stripping away all the memories of Suyu from her mind. No. Suyu's eyes were filled with unwillingness, and his heart was filled with great rebelliousness. No one could take Qin Sienna away from him. No one could. He exerted the time and space reverse to the extreme, and the price of it was his own life. His body was constantly aging at a speed visible to the naked eye. From a young man to a middle-aged man, from a middle-aged man to an old man. His hair was white and his face was covered with spots, which was a sign that he was about to step into death. Brother Suyu, stop. Qin Sienna covered Suyu's eyes with her palms. She could not call out Suyu's name, and she could not even remember his specific appearance. She watched as Suyu went berserk, sacrificing his own life without a care for anything else, just so that she could retain a moment of her lost memory. Her heart was filled with warmth and contentment. It's enough, brother. Qin Sienna really could not remember his name, even though he was right in front of her. In your heart, the first thing you see is me. I am so happy, really, really happy. I used to think it would be Sister Jingyu. Don't sacrifice for me, Sienna, I am already satisfied. It doesn't matter even if I don't remember you. Tears streamed down Suyu's face like rain. It was only after losing something that he knew how to cherish it. Turned out that Qin Sienna was the person that he could not forget the most in his heart. She raised her head, and with tears in her eyes, she gently kissed Suyu's lips. Soft and cold, like a flower about to wither. Sienna. Suyu's heart trembled intensely, and a great sorrow welled up in his heart. Qin Sienna retracted her red lips and looked at the face in front of her. There was a sense of unfamiliarity in her eyes. She couldn't remember this face. She couldn't remember the name of the young man in front of her. She couldn't remember why she kissed him. However, she couldn't help but shed tears for him. She cried for him and grieved for him. It was as if she was about to lose something. If we can meet again, please tell me your name. Please tell me the story between us. Please tell me the memories that I've forgotten. Qin Sienna blinked her eyes and said. However, the look in her eyes became more and more unfamiliar, and her body involuntarily retreated, gradually distancing itself from Suyu. No. A heart-wrenching pain came from Suyu's chest, and he roared, I can stop time, I can freeze space, I can make souls stay forever, I can make life unextinguished, I can make fate uninterrupted, and I can make death invulnerable. I only ask that you remember my name. Time, space, soul, life, death, fate. 6 types of rules were gathered. They turned into 6 chains, which emitted brilliant colors and wrapped around Suyu and Qin Sienna. At this moment, Qin Sienna, who was retreating, stopped in her tracks and looked at Suyu in shock. She murmured, she wanted to call out Suyu's name, but she couldn't. A glimmer of hope flashed in Suyu's eyes. It was effective. However, she only remembered the name Su. Her eyes were filled with ruthlessness, and a crack opened between her brows. Many hunters' souls were sealed in it. This was because the souls in her body were so strong that they couldn't match her body. Therefore, Suyu only sealed them, and didn't devour them. Now it was all right. A glimmer of decisiveness flashed in her eyes, and many souls were devoured in an instant. Her soul started expanding at a speed visible to the naked eye, and it kept surpassing the limits of her body. Finally, cracks appeared on her body. It was a sign that her soul was so strong that it was about to crush her body. It was like a vase that contained more sand than the vase could bear. The vase would shatter from the inside out. As long as you still remember my name, I don't care if I destroy my body or be consigned to eternal damnation. Suyu roared at the sky. His devouring eyes revolved at an unprecedented speed. His soul energy increased sharply, and when it reached a critical point, his body couldn't bear it any longer, and it shattered into nothingness. Dozens of years of cultivation had been destroyed in a single day. However, he didn't regret it. His soul energy instantly expanded to the level of a half-step path master. Among the 6 great rules, the soul rule's power suddenly doubled. Qin Xianer muttered, "Su Yu." Before her memory disappeared completely, she finally remembered a name, Su Yu. That was the name that Su Yu had exchanged his body for. Su Yu strode forward, held her shoulders and asked, "Do you still remember me?" Qin Xianer raised her eyes and looked at Su Yu. She asked, "Who are you?" Su Yu's heart sank to the bottom of an abyss. In the end, she had forgotten him. She had forgotten Su Yu, forgotten Xunyue Island, forgotten the Zhenlong continent, and forgotten the unbearable weight of her life. Qin Xianer pushed Su Yu's arms away, and bowed to the undying ancestral demon. "Thank you for answering me. Goodbye." After saying this, a mysterious power sent Qin Xianer away. Su Yu reached out, but he only caught a shadow. A cold and empty feeling swept across his palm. He couldn't even catch Qin Xianer for the last time. In her life, Su Yu, along with his name and person, disappeared together, never to return. Great pain and sorrow swept across her heart. Why did this happen? Su Yu didn't understand. If he had asked Qin Xianer and Xia Jingyu first, Qin Xianer would have recognized Su Yu and reunited with him. Then, Qin Xianer wouldn't have asked Su Yu a second time, and her memory wouldn't have been lost forever. Qin Xianer clearly wanted to ask Su Yu first, but for some reason, she asked about the Azura Imperial Seal first. "There is a powerful being controlling your fate." The undying ancestral demon sighed. "I have tried my best to stop it, but in the end, I can't resist the great path of destiny." Su Yu's silent, dim eyes suddenly burst with murderous intent. "Who is it?" He had clearly felt a big, invisible hand pressing down on him. Things continued to slide into the abyss. "The stone embryo son of heaven who controls the great path of destiny." Su Yu's eyes were filled with murderous intent. "Stone, embryo, heaven, son. Why are you doing this?" "Because you are the sacred mortal body. One was born from chaos, and the other was born from the common people. The stone embryo son of heaven and the sacred mortal body were born to be mortal enemies." Su Yu looked up to the sky and laughed with tears of sorrow. "Just because of my identity, just because of an inexplicable fate, I want Qin Xianer to forget me, to make me disappear from her life forever." "Stone embryo son of heaven." Su Yu's eyes were blood-red, and he pointed to the sky angrily. "Today, at this moment, I swear on my soul that I will kill all of you." He had never been an enemy of the stone embryo son of heaven. But that was in the past. From this moment on, they were enemies that Su Yu had to destroy in his lifetime. "The blood of the son of heaven must end with my sword." Su Yu roared with red eyes and made the most magnificent oath in his life. An invisible ripple vibrated out from his body. The great path of absolute beginning trembled fiercely. Suddenly, the order of heaven and earth was in chaos, and time and space were turbulent. The majestic body of the undying ancestral demon flickered. At the same time, the 6 path rules surrounding Su Yu erupted with unprecedented brilliant divine light, piercing through the colorful world and rushing into the endless sky. The entire demon realm, hundreds of millions of creatures could see the 6 rays of light that rushed into the sky. The rays of light did not stop, rushing into the endless void. In the distant constellation sea, the Diu Empire, the Dark Star, the Tai Chi sect, and the Cangjing Zodiac Palace. All the creatures saw the 6 rays of light rushing into the endless void between heaven and earth. It was like a burning moth, looking at death calmly, pouncing into the unknown darkness. It was like a rebellious will that was unwilling to be bound, piercing through the pitch-black night sky and stabbing towards the supreme existence in the dark. The ordinary people might not understand, but all the path masters who were watching were shocked. "A sacred mortal body has awakened! Finally! A sacred mortal body has begun to challenge the holy mountain. Finally, the will of the common people has begun to resist the pressure of the doomsday. The turbulence has begun. The end of the world has come. The endless voices of the Path Masters resounded through the void of thousands of civilizations, spreading through the endless silent void. Boom! The 6 Path Rules bombarded something in the dark. Grains of dust and sand fell from the ground. The dust drifted and fell on a 9-star civilization below. That civilization, in an instant, disappeared. Among the white clouds of boundless sacred aura, an ordinary small mountain was floating on it. 8 majestic stone figures stood tall, casting a boundless, magnificent shadow on the ground. Xiaoyao, son of heaven, why bother? You failed to destroy the spirit of the sacred mortal body, and instead stimulated his awakening, the stone man in the middle said indifferently. On the holy mountain, a 6-colored mark was struck. The mark was full of Su Yu's incomparable killing intent and rebellious will. It's just a mere sacred mortal body. How many sacred bodies have been buried in this era? It doesn't matter if he's here or not. The stone man on the far right had a very feminine face. The stone man in the middle said indifferently, before the sacred body grows, it must be killed. I will handle it. It's just a newly awakened sacred body. Killing it is as easy as killing an ant. The stone man said indifferently. The demon realm. The ancient dream forbidden land. The chain of rules around Su Yu had long been broken. The rules turned from the state of chains into spots of light. Chapter 2130. Su Yu's soul light flickered, like pieces of white snow surrounding his body. The colorful divine light of the 6 Paths rules gradually faded, leaving only a pair of crimson eyes. The 2 colors of suppressed hatred and murderous intent lingered in the air. Why should I congratulate you? Even Su Yu's voice had become hoarse, and it was filled with a gloominess that would make anyone shudder. The indestructible ancestral demon said, losing a woman in exchange for the awakening of your mortal body. Since ancient times there have been countless mortal bodies, but only a few have awakened them, so what? Su Yu interrupted him. Compared to her, what is the awakening of the mortal body? Can it be compared to her remembering my name? He had already answered with his self-destructing body, no. There is no banquet in the world without an end. Staying together until the end of time is just a pledge of undying love. When the music is over, people will part ways. This is the common sense of the heavenly law. Su Yu looked up at the sky, his blood-red eyes filled with deep contempt. The heavenly law again, what is the heavenly law? You know better than me. That is just deceiving yourself, just an illusion to comfort yourself in life. There has never been a heavenly law, only those invisible supreme beings that rule over us. The indestructible ancestral demon was stunned for a while before he praised, as expected of the mortal body bred by the will of the people. Yes, the so-called heavenly law is the rules created by the stone-born sons of the holy mountain, the rules that rule us living beings. Your mortal body has awakened, and the rules that you have cultivated your entire life have broken free from their rules. His 6 Paths rules had changed from the initial state of chains to the state of light spots, which was a sign of breaking free from the shackles of the heavenly law rules. So, if I want to bring back Xian Er's memory, I have to snatch it from the hands of the stone-born sons? Su Yu's crimson eyes were rolling with thick bloody light. Yes, as long as you can kill any of the stone-born sons and take away their sacred source, you can retrieve their stolen memories from the sacred source. Su Yu's fluctuating eyes eased slightly. At least there was a way. Although it was too far away, too long, and too difficult. However, Xian Er cried her heart out and asked him to remember that when they met again, he had to tell her his name and their story. Su Yu felt that no matter how far or how long the journey was, it was no longer important. He owed Qin Xian Er a lot. He had always neglected her, forgotten her in the corner of his heart, and let her bear so much alone. Until today, she had lost her most cherished memories for him. She shed tears and painfully forgot the past. If he could retrieve his memories, no matter how difficult it wouldn't be too much. Tell me, how do I get to the sacred mountain? The indestructible ancestral demon said with his hands behind his back, the end of the absolute beginning realm. Suyu nodded and left. He was about to head for the sacred mountain. He didn't want to wait a moment longer. With your current cultivation, heading to the sacred mountain will only result in death. Even someone as strong as the human ancestor, who held the mortal life cauldron and carried the will of all living beings, ended up dying. The human ancestor? Was that the remains of the human ancestor? Suyu looked at the skeleton. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but he felt the skeleton move. After calming down, Suyu said in a low voice, "Ancestor demon, please give me some pointers." The indestructible ancestral demon said, "Although you have awakened the sacred mortal body, your lamp has yet to awaken. It is still extinguished." Immediately, an ancient oil lamp appeared on Suyu's chest. This was the ancient lamp that appeared when he achieved the sacred mortal body. However, it had not been extinguished. Instead, it was burning with a flame that wasn't weak. "It has not been extinguished. Don't look with your eyes, look with your rules," the indestructible ancestral demon said. Now, Suyu's rules no longer belonged to the heavenly path. He enveloped the ancient lamp with the 6 path rules, but found that the ancient lamp was cold and silent, without any warmth. When he moved his laws away, it was visible to the naked eye that he was burning again. Do you understand now? The heavenly path has been deceiving you all along, preventing you from seeing the true appearance of your ancient lamp. Suyu's eyes flashed with a cold light. Suyu said, "What will happen after I light it?" The current ancient lamp's limited use to Suyu was to burn everything in the world and release the primordial energy. Use? The ancient lamp is the core of the growth of the sacred mortal body. Once it is lit, it is equivalent to opening up your own heavenly path. In other words, you will become the path master. Suyu's pupils shrank. How do I light it? Find the myriad lanterns ancestor Buddha. He is the myriad lanterns ancestor, and he can light all lamps that cannot be lit, including the ancient lamp. Where is he? The holy land of Western Paradise. Suyu nodded deeply. The indestructible ancestral demon said, "As I said to purple-haired Suyu, only the stone-birth son of heaven can kill the sacred mortal body. However, what I didn't say is that only the sacred mortal body can kill the stone-birth son of heaven. Only by lighting the ancient lamp can you be considered a complete sacred mortal body and have the ability to harm them." "Do you have any more pointers?" Suyu asked lightly. The indestructible ancestral demon said, "No matter how far away, I don't know. Or, even if I know, I won't have the chance to tell you, because I have already been discovered." Suyu's pupils shrank slightly, and he said in a low voice, "Didn't you say that you would take the person's most cherished item once by answering a question? Why didn't you take it from me?" "Because I paid the price for you. You asked 10 questions, and each of them, I paid the price of my clones hidden in time and space. The first 9 clones have been discovered by the heavenly path and have been destroyed. Now only I, the last clone, am left." Suyu was stunned. "Clones?" "Yes. The real indestructible ancestral demon died a long time ago in the destruction of the previous era. It was the skeleton of the human ancestor that protected my soul from being destroyed. Since this era, my soul has been divided into 10 parts, each hidden in a different time and space. The ones who answered your 10 questions just now were actually not the same soul. They were found by the heavenly path and erased after answering one of your questions. Now only I am left." Suyu was surprised. No wonder he always felt the smell of time and space around the indestructible ancestral demon. She was really hiding in the turbulence of time and space. Moreover, 9 of her clones had been destroyed. If you want to know how to go to the Saint of Western Bliss, you can find. Suddenly, the indestructible ancestral demon's body blurred and flickered continuously, like a shadow in the water. When the waves rose, the shadow overlapped. She had been discovered by the heavenly path and was being erased. You can find the multi-eyed boy, he will tell you the way ahead. Despite the danger of collapse, the indestructible ancestral demon still pointed out the way, but her figure became even more blurred. She laughed loudly. I have waited for you for far too long, the successor of the ancient god Jialong. I hope you don't disappoint us old fellows. Amidst the laughter, the indestructible ancestral demon was turned into ashes. It was as if an invisible but extremely powerful thing had descended and trampled on her. At the same time, the entire colorful world dimmed rapidly, and a suffocating darkness descended. In the darkness, there seemed to be a pair of cold eyes staring coldly at Suyu, wanting to swallow him up. At this moment there was a creak. An untimely sound came from the silent darkness. Turning his head, he saw that it was the remains of the human ancestor. Slowly bending down, his right arm picked up the life cauldron that had fallen beside him. His eyes were cloudy, and there was no soul in his body. However, when the darkness approached, he moved on his own, his mouth uttering hollow and apathetic ravings. The human clan's 100 battles body is not dead yet, the primal chaos oath will not be returned, the heavenly book characters on his body shone brilliantly in all directions. Each of them formed a complicated spell, imprinted on various parts of his body. Seeing this, the being in the darkness let out a shrill scream of fear. The human ancestor still has a trick up his sleeve. It will only be triggered when the stone embryo son of heaven approaches. Damn it, I've fallen for the indestructible ancestral demon's trap. As long as the primal chaos is not extinguished, I will not be dust. The human ancestor rubbed his hands together, and the life cauldron shook violently, turning into an incomparably huge cauldron. It suddenly turned upside down towards the evil being in the darkness. A shrill scream and a furious roar could be heard. Human ancestor, even if you die, you still want to become an enemy of the holy mountain. However, the human ancestor calmly extended a finger and pointed at the darkness. The life cauldron suddenly revolved, and the shrill voice gradually faded away. You destroyed my projection, all right, but I will not stop. The little saint body beside you will follow in your footsteps sooner or later. With a violent scream, the figure in the darkness completely disappeared. The human ancestor grabbed the air, and the life cauldron returned to his hand. He turned around and faced Suyu, pouring out a ball of golden powder from the life cauldron. He did not understand what the human ancestor's remains meant, but the divine nine-dragon cauldron rushed out on its own, roaring excitedly as it caught all of the golden powder. What was shocking was that the 7th dragon, the reincarnation dragon, which could not be crystallized no matter what he did, was actually more than half crystallized. Su Yu's eyes flickered with understanding. He clenched his fist, and the 6 paths revolving small gate appeared in his palm. The gate of reincarnation. Create your own cycle of reincarnation and form your own world. From now on, your life and death will not be controlled by the heavenly law, Su Yu muttered softly. Under the cover of the gate of reincarnation, life and death would be in his hands. The dead could live and the living could die. At that moment, the human ancestor's remains said intermittently, "Have you learned it?" Su Yu bowed deeply. "Thank you, human ancestor, for your teachings." The human ancestor had just been demonstrating to Su Yu how to operate the small cauldron. The life cauldron could trap the enemy and use that to destroy them. The divine nine-dragon cauldron could do the same. The human ancestor raised his head, looking at the end of the great void. "As long as my body exists, I will not perish in battle." He slowly lifted his leg, but his body had already disappeared. He was not even in the Ecliptic Palace Civilization Department. Only Suyu was left alone. If he could, he hoped that everything that had just happened was just a dream. Looking around, Suyu realized that his body had disappeared during the battle just now. Not only had it been destroyed, but it had also been swallowed by the void. His eyes flashed with deep regret. Only his soul was left. Did he have to start training all over again? Regrettably, he had sacrificed his body, which he had trained for dozens of years, but still could not make Qin Sienna remember his name. However, what he did not know was that, at the intercivilization transportation portal of the demon realm, Qin Sienna lowered her head and muttered softly, "Suyu, why would I remember such a name? Who is he? Have we met before?" Chapter 21:31. At that time, the stone demon half-ancestor and the two Tao lords had been waiting outside. They were shocked when they sensed the huge change in the center of the abyss. After a long silence, the stone demon half-ancestor said, "Let's go take a look." They tried to catch a savage beast and throw it in. The savage beast was still alive and was not killed by the mysterious ripple. "There's a situation," the stone demon half-ancestor said. They caught several savage beasts and used them to scout the way. They went all the way to the center of the abyss. The last thing that came into view was a flattened ruin. "Where's the human corpse?" The stone demon half-ancestor was shocked. The corpse had been there since the beginning of the demon world. Why did it suddenly disappear? However, the stone demon half-ancestor was more concerned about the indestructible ancestral demon. He looked around but did not see the indestructible ancestral demon. What happened here? Why is there nothing here? The stone demon half-ancestor murmured. The two Tao lords beside him seemed to sense something and stared at the place where the indestructible ancestral demon had been. There was still a fragment of the indestructible ancestral demon there. The stone demon half-ancestor followed their gaze and his expression changed slightly. He immediately took a step forward and picked up the fragment. He was shocked. "The indestructible ancestral demon, is it already?" When the two Tao lords saw this, they quickly said, "Quickly leave that place." However, it was too late. The space-time there was instantly chaotic. The scene of the indestructible ancestral demon flashed past. The stone demon half-ancestor only had time to see the figure clearly. He did not even have time to say a word before a mysterious power penetrated his body. That was the power of the heavenly Tao. The scene just now was the scene when the heavenly Tao chased after the indestructible ancestral demon. The moment the stone demon half-ancestor picked up the indestructible ancestral demon's fragment, it affected the space-time turbulence and replayed the final scene of the indestructible ancestral demon being killed. The power of the heavenly Tao passed through space-time and killed the stone demon half-ancestor who was standing at the edge of space-time. The stone demon half-ancestor's body was unharmed, but the soul in his body was instantly destroyed. His eyes were gray. It was just like the message the indestructible ancestral demon left him. The moment the stone demon half-ancestor saw him was the moment he died. If he was content, he could still live for another 100 years. However, he was not willing to work his entire life as an emperor and insisted on asking the indestructible ancestral demon. As expected, his fate was already decided. He was definitely going to die. The expressions of the two Tao lords changed drastically, and they tore through the air at the same time, not even daring to stay in the demon realm. "Inform everyone to evacuate the demon realm immediately. The heavenly Tao has appeared here." Crash. The news was instantly sent to the members of the Star Alliance Chamber of Commerce who had sufficient authority. One by one, the experts used all kinds of methods to quickly leave the demon realm. Close to 10 half-step Tao lords boarded a ship that drifted through the void. After asking around, they immediately left the Yao realm. "Give up on chasing after Suyu for now. Everyone, retreat." To them, the appearance of the heavenly Tao was like a ferocious tiger passing through, and they all retreated with pale expressions. However, outside the ancient dream forbidden land, a snow-white disk rapidly broke through the sky. It was a Tao artifact immortal embryo, a failed product of Meng Ku'er's attempt to complete her Tao. Its only function was to nourish the soul. Suyu had lost his body, and the only thing left of his soul was the soul board. The soul plate was indeed worthy of being a Tao artifact immortal embryo. Not only did the soul not weaken, it continued to grow stronger. Presently, his soul was at the half-step Daolord realm, and he was just a step away from becoming a Daolord. However, the increase in the size of his soul was far from enough to become a Tao soul. It needed a qualitative improvement, and the so-called qualitative improvement was the appearance of the soul path fragments. However, Suyu was in no mood to temper his soul at the moment. What he wanted was to go to the Seven Knights' divine capital and meet Qin Xianer one last time before the intercivilization transportation portal. Even if she didn't recognize him anymore. As he was hurrying along, two figures approached the intercivilization transportation portal. One had a big belly and was about to give birth, while the other was carefully taking care of it. They were none other than Huangfu Liang and his wife. Mo Xiaochai's belly was already very big, a sign that she was about to give birth. Looking at the Seven Knights' divine capital, Mo Xiaochai sighed deeply. To think that I would return one day. My wife, are you really confident that you can give our child a future? Huangfu Liang was full of worry. Mo Xiaochai had left the demon realm when she was still a child. Whether or not the current royal family still recognized Mo Xiaochai was uncertain. I know what I'm doing. Mo Xiaochai took a deep breath. The two of them arrived at the imperial palace, and a brand new building came into view. Who dares barge into the sacred place of the imperial palace? Several old half-path masters shouted in unison. They were responsible for protecting the royal family. During this great calamity, the flood dragon demonic emperor had disappeared, and they had no choice but to bow down to the stone demon half-ancestor. They regarded him as the new demon emperor. However, in their opinion, the flood dragon demonic emperor should still be the rightful successor. To their relief, the jade of life that they were in charge of had suddenly shattered just a moment ago. It was the life jade tablet of the stone demon half-ancestor. In other words, the stone demon half-ancestor was dead. They had not announced this matter, because once it was leaked, the demon realm, which had just regained its peace, would once again fall into chaos. However, this matter could not be kept a secret for long. Just as they were worrying about this, they suddenly sensed the bloodline aura of the royal family appearing near the imperial palace. They thought that it was the return of the flood dragon demonic emperor, but when they arrived, they realized that it was a human and a demon. They could not help but scold him, but they were secretly observing the demon. Mo Xiaochai's expression was calm. She turned her palm and took out a section of the dragon's horn. The words Princess Zai were engraved on it. Princess Zai. The half-step Daolords looked at each other. They did not remember that there was a title like princess in the current imperial family. The princess was the descendant of the demon emperor's brother. In other words, she was the demon emperor's niece. However, there was only one demon emperor in the current imperial family, and he had no brothers. The half-step Daolords seemed to have thought of something when they focused their gazes on the horn of a WRM that emanated pure demon energy, and they said with surprise, "Could you be the previous demon emperor, Ho-E of the Chilean demon emperor?" Mo Xiaochai shook her head. "I don't know. I only remember that I once stayed here." The half-step Daolords exchanged glances and nodded slowly after a while. Their eyes were filled with a sense of relief. It was like a pillow delivered to them when they were sleepy. The return of a princess with the royal family's bloodline was a timely help when the demon realm was about to face another calamity. "Come with me. I want to test the purity of the royal family's bloodline and the fetus in your body." Under the guidance of the half-step Daolords, Mo Xiaochai and Huangfu Liang arrived at an altar in the depths of the imperial palace. They took the initiative to test Mo Shaochai. Not long after, the 3 half-step Downlords shook their heads regretfully. The purity of her bloodline is less than half. According to the ancestral rules, she cannot become the Demon Emperor. Chapter 2132. The Demon Emperor bloodline that he was referring to was the bloodline of the first Demon Emperor. Even the most powerful Blood Lotus Dao demon only inherited less than 80% of the first-generation Demon Emperor's bloodline. 99%. Didn't that mean that he could reach the level of the indestructible ancestral demon? Impossible. Let's check again. Under normal circumstances, the bloodline would be weaker with each generation, so it was very unusual for there to be a reversal. Unless the indestructible ancestral demon was reincarnated. But is it possible? However, the results of the test shocked them greatly. It was still 99%. The 3 half-step Downlords were shocked for a long time before they gasped. What exactly is going on? After a long time, they gradually calmed down. Their eyes were filled with joy as they said, "Perhaps the strongest demon king of all time is about to descend." Although Mo Shaochai wasn't qualified to become the Demon Emperor, her son, who was about to give birth, could. Huang Fu Liang pointed at himself in disbelief. "My son is the strongest Demon Emperor?" The 3 half-step Downlords looked at him with disdain and said to Mo Shaochai, "Demon Emperor Empress Dowager, this human is not worthy of your noble status. Do you need us to select a harem of 3,000 handsome men from the demon realm?" Hearing this, Huang Fuliang's face turned green. If that was the case, he might as well die. The Demon Emperor Empress Dowager, Mo Shaochai looked at Huang Fuliang with a faint smile and said, "If one day, this human doesn't treat me well, I will consider it." Huang Fuliang wiped his cold sweat and rubbed her shoulders with a smile. He sighed bitterly in his heart. Once upon a time, he wanted to be a man of indomitable spirit and create his own career. Now, he had become the strongest existence that relied on women. From ancient times until now, there were probably not many people like him, living off women and becoming the overlord of the demon realm, right? The grievance in his heart could be imagined. "All right, Demon Emperor Empress Dowager, please enter the palace to rest. We will immediately arrange for you to give birth." Mo Shaochai rubbed her belly, and her eyes suddenly became gloomy. She then said, "Before this, I needed to use the imperial family's forbidden immortal tool to search for a person's remains." The 3 half-step Downlords nodded. "No problem." The 3 half-step Downlords were led to the forbidden area in the depths of the imperial palace. During the battle between the Demon Emperor and the Dao Master, the shockwaves caused by the battle had destroyed the entire palace. However, the forbidden area of the imperial palace was protected by a formation that had been strengthened by generations of demon sovereigns, so it was safe and sound. They arrived at a gloomy palace. As soon as he entered, he could vaguely see the shadow of a fox flash past. "What is it?" The 3 half-step Downlords were shocked, and they immediately rushed over. In front of a stone door that was emitting light, there was a fox tail that had fallen to the ground. It was unknown how long the tail had been there, but it was still intact. Someone used the sacred gate of samsara. The 3 half-step Downlords immediately went on high alert. Mo Shaochai slightly wrinkled her brows. "I'll have to trouble the 3 of you to stand guard outside. Expel the unknown object immediately." The 3 half-step Downlords nodded and immediately stood guard outside. When only the 2 of them were left in the room, Dai Shaochai let out a faint sigh and said, "Husband, come here." Huang Fuliang's face dimmed. "Fine." He raised his finger and sent a wisp of Su Yu's aura into the door. He then said, "Su Yu, this is the only thing that Shaochai and I can do for you." When the sacred gate of samsara was opened, a powerful ripple immediately appeared and radiated toward the demon realm, as well as the boundless nothingness beyond it. In a certain faraway nothingness, the purple-haired Su Yu's body was lying in the ice-cold nothingness, drifting aimlessly along with it. The powerful nothingness was corroding everything on the surface of his body, but it couldn't corrode his body. This was because his body was condensed from rule fragment. Right at that moment, a weak ripple swept past and discovered his existence. A large amount of spatial ripples appeared around his body and swept him away. In the Demon Realm Palace, after searching for 3 whole days, the sacred gate of Samsara suddenly opened with a creak, and a corpse fell out of it. It was Su Yu. The last bit of hope in Huangfu Liang and Mo Xiao Chai's hearts was completely shattered. If they couldn't find Su Yu's corpse, it meant that he was still alive. However, they found Huangfu Liang's face was slightly pale, and his eyes gradually became moist. His old friend of many years had fallen in the end. The scene of him meeting Su Yu for the first time in the Sea of Constellations was still vivid in his mind, as if it had happened just yesterday. But he left just like that. A great sense of loneliness and desolation flooded his heart. Huangfu Liang trembled as he picked up Su Yu's corpse and cried bitterly. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Brother Su, rest in peace. He brought Su Yu's corpse to a side palace and prepared to hold a funeral so that he could give him a proper burial. Mo Xiao Chai looked at the fox tail on the ground and took it with her. Not long after, a frail, beautiful woman dressed in a palace gown appeared behind the sacred gate of Samsara. Her gentle eyes flashed with anger. Damn it! I spent years searching for the 9th tail, and you took it away! She was unwilling to accept this outcome. She hid again, waiting for an opportunity to snatch it back. Now, all that was left of her was an extremely weak soul. Even the weakest of living creatures could kill her. Therefore, she wouldn't dare to come out unless it was absolutely necessary. At the same time, at the Imperial City, at the Intercivilization Transportation Portal, Su Yu stared at the empty transportation portal and the lingering scent of Qin Sienner in the air. He couldn't erase the deep sorrow and self-mockery in his heart. Only when you lose something in the world will you know how to cherish it. Why didn't he understand such a principle in the past? After standing there for a long time, Su Yu was about to step into the transportation portal and immediately return to the demon dimension. Suddenly, his soul trembled slightly. His eyes involuntarily looked in the direction of the palace, and he was secretly surprised. That scent, is it my body? His original body had a weak connection with his soul that couldn't be severed. Within a certain range, they could sense each other. How did my body appear here? Su Yu was surprised. He thought that it had been taken away by the heavenly law, or destroyed in the great battle between the human ancestor and the heavenly law. His eyes flashed with surprise, and he immediately flashed toward the palace. He was now in a soul state and didn't have a physical body, so it was easier for him to sneak into the palace. Under the cover of the law of space, he quietly came to a side hall in the palace. What he saw was a corpse sealed in ice. It was his old body. It had been taken away by the sinful lady, and now it appeared in front of him in one piece. With a thought, Su Yu's soul immediately entered his body. Suddenly, his soul felt an unprecedented sense of peace, as if it had finally returned to its home after wandering for a long time. However, before Su Yu could begin to control his body, a strong evil energy rushed over from afar and instantly entered his body. Get lost. This is my body. It was the voice of the purple-haired Su Yu. He had never given up on his body, and when he sensed the fluctuations of his body, he immediately rushed over with great joy. Unexpectedly, Su Yu had also lost his body and returned to his body one step ahead of him. The purple-haired Su Yu was anxious, and regardless of the consequences, he entered his body and fought for control. Chapter 2133. However, the purple-haired Su Yu had been relying on Su Yu's body all along. His soul was just a combination of many weak souls. How could it compete with Su Yu's soul? I was worried that I couldn't find you. A crack appeared between the eyebrows of Su Yu's soul, and a powerful sucking force was produced. The purple-haired Su Yu roared, Get lost. This is my body. As the indestructible ancestral demon had said, the most precious thing about the purple-haired Suyu was his body. Without his body, he was useless. You are wrong. This is my body. Suyu swallowed it into his own vortex and said calmly, "Thank you for bringing my body to the great beginning realm from 1,000 miles away and returning it to its rightful owner." As he spoke, Suyu closed his eyes and opened the soul vortex, completely destroying the purple-haired Suyu's soul. His soul was full of resentment, hatred, and other negative emotions. There was no pure soul at all. Wait. Suddenly, Suyu found that there was an unusually pure golden thread in his soul. After a moment of perception, he found that it was the soul of the sinful lady. It was precisely because of this trace of soul that the many different souls were able to fuse together and not collapse. After a careful perception, Suyu found that he could feel the existence of the sinful lady through this soul. What was more amazing was that he could use this soul to absorb the cultivation of the sinful lady for his own use. He thought to himself that the purple-haired Suyu was able to display the cultivation of a half-step path master with the help of the sinful lady. If the purple-haired Suyu can use her, why can't I? Suyu's eyes flashed. He fused this wisp of soul into his own soul. All of a sudden, his soul was boiling. The soul fragments in his soul were increasing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Originally, less than 1/10 of Suyu's soul was Tao. After merging with this wisp of golden soul, more than half of the soul completed deification. This was just a trace of the sinful lady's cultivation, but it had such incredible power. How powerful was the true strength of the sinful lady's soul! Moreover, Suyu had a feeling that he could use this soul to steal part of the sinful lady's cultivation and push the cultivation of his body directly to the peak level of the Five-Crown Emperor. For him, this would be a great breakthrough in strength. However, Suyu did not take any action. Instead, he closed his eyes and extracted 2 specks of light from his soul. One of them was the comprehension of the reincarnation Tao. The other was the comprehension of the Tao of creation. Among the 8 great profound meanings of heaven and earth, Suyu had become the emperor of heaven and earth with 6 of them. He only lacked the last 2. He had already given up, but he didn't expect that his body would return. Moreover, he had yet to become a world emperor. Since that was the case, why not let him become a martial emperor with 2 Taos to make up for his regret? Over the years, although he had not comprehended 2 Taos with the Tao reign, with his current realm, even without the Tao reign, his comprehension ability was still far beyond what he had been in the past. Thus, these 2 comprehensions were enough to ignite the divine Tao and form the Gate of Emperors. Suyu then tapped his body with a finger after he had imbued the 2 waves of comprehension into his body. Instantly, his body quivered and a giant stone door appeared above his head. The stone gate stretched across heaven and earth, attracting the attention of many demons. They were used to seeing someone break through to the martial emperor realm, but this was the first time they had seen such a huge martial emperor gate, so they all stared at it in astonishment. Somewhere, the Flood Dragon Emperor looked up at the stone gate, his eyes full of surprise. Someone became a world emperor with the 8 supreme laws? His face showed deep surprise. There is someone in the demon realm with such a superb comprehension ability? What a surprise! The martial emperor gate appeared, and Suyu immediately borrowed a bit of cultivation from the soul of the sinful lady. His body was controlled by Suyu, and he suddenly got up and bombarded the martial emperor gate. With a loud bang, the martial emperor gate was immediately shattered. A law slowly descended and integrated into the head of the body. Then, a second stone gate appeared. The surprise on the face of the Flood Dragon Emperor turned into horror. Double the 8 supreme laws to achieve the body of a martial emperor? Is this something that ordinary people can do? Even if it is a mortal body, only a few people can do this, right? There was a flash of surprise in his eyes, and he suddenly remembered the words of the indestructible ancestral demon. His heart moved. Was that the person he had been waiting for? After thinking for a while, he flashed to the sky above the palace. He lifted his 5 fingers and protected the entire palace to prevent anyone from disturbing the breakthrough. Soon, the second gate was easily smashed by Su Yu's body. The last law was integrated into Su Yu's body. The last 2 laws were finally completed, and Su Yu's soul breathed a long sigh of relief. With a thought, he completely merged with his body. Suddenly, his body was surrounded by a myriad of colorful rays of light. It was amazing. That was the sign of the gathering of the 8 laws. Su Yu sat up, and a deep understanding appeared in his mind. At this moment, he had mastered the 8 supreme laws between heaven and earth, and he instantly had the illusion of replacing the heavens. Beside him, there were scenes of birth, aging, sickness and death, the withering of vegetation, and the reincarnation of all living things. It was as if Su Yu's side was the endless universe, and all the laws were there. A world of its own. Su Yu murmured softly. At this moment, he had jumped out of all the restrictions of the great beginning realm and rebuilt a world with his own laws. With him as the center, within 3 feet, it was another world that was different from the great beginning realm. And he was the universe master of the 3-foot world. Within this world, he was the supreme master. With a thought, he could bloom a flower. With a thought, he could destroy a mountain. With a thought of reincarnation, and with a thought of nothingness. As long as the enchantment was opened within 3 feet, he was invincible. The only one who could compete with this world was the stone fetus son of heaven. They controlled the source of the great beginning realm, and could break through the world and destroy Su Yu's world. Quietly staring at the constantly changing scenes of the world, Su Yu's eyes showed a touch of gentleness. This world, let's name it the fairy realm. It meant the world where Sienna existed. With a thought, the fairy realm converged and slowly dissipated. With a thought, the fairy realm could be released. From the 2 collapsed stone gates, there was still a white misty mysterious power, which made Su Yu's cultivation rise slowly. Not long after, he reached the level of the middle stage of the single crown king realm, and finally stopped. Then, it's time to collect some interest from the evil girl. Su Yu's eyes flashed coldly, and he completely digested the golden soul. As it fused, an unprecedentedly violent energy erupted from it and rushed into Su Yu's inner world. The inner world continued to explode rapidly, one after another, until there were dozens of violent explosions, and the inner world expanded dozens of times. Although there was endless pain, Su Yu clenched his teeth and endured it silently. If he could improve his cultivation, all the pain would be worth it. Soon, the explosions in the inner world stopped, and the inner world was filled with an endless power of desolation. With a wave of his hand, a terrifying cultivation was unleashed. 5 Crown King. Peak. Su Yu said to himself. It was not much different from what he had expected. He had snatched such a cultivation from the hands of the evil girl. In the faraway sea of constellations, an ancient formation that had been sealed suddenly shone brightly. On the other side of the formation, the evil girl sat cross-legged, trying her best to break through the formation and break out of the prison. All of a sudden, the evil girl gave a muffled groan, and there was a faint trace of pain. My soul has been destroyed. The epic-making dragon lay at her feet and said calmly, as expected, that human brat was born with luck, and he could not be killed just because he was strong. Without a doubt, the purple-haired Su Yu had failed, and his soul had been destroyed. The light on the surface of the evil girl's body flickered, and she slowly calmed down. She said, "That evil thing is dead. It saves me the trouble of doing it myself." The epic-making dragon's eyes flashed, and his face was filled with deep joy. The formation is about to be broken through? It has been broken through. The evil girl stood up slowly and pressed her palm on the formation. Suddenly, the formation shone brightly, and a whiff of the great beginning realm's aura came from it. The evil girl looked up at the existence in the darkness and said calmly, "Tao Tai, we will never meet again." "Hee, I feel that we will meet again one day." The weak voice of the Tao Tai came from nowhere. It seemed that in the battle between him and the evil girl had won. "It's best not to meet again. Otherwise you will die," the evil girl said calmly, and jumped into the formation. The epic-making dragon also jumped in excitedly, and finally disappeared without a trace. After a long time, the Tao Tai sighed. As expected of the number one person under the Emperor. "You can defeat me with only 10% of your strength. Even if you recover a little, I might be turned into ashes. That human boy who escaped, you're on your own now." Swish, in the sea of constellations. All the seawater of the Sword Pavilion suddenly evaporated into thin air, revealing the dry seabed. A giant white dragon roared and flew up to the sky. On the dragon's head, a woman stood with her hands behind her back. Her whole body was shining, and her face could not be seen clearly. But her voice was clear and sweet. She closed her eyes and sensed for a moment, then opened them and pointed to the west. "Demon Realm, let's go." The epic-making dragon let out a long roar and flew away through the clouds. In the palace of the Demon Realm, Suyu suddenly felt a strong sense of discomfort, as if he was being stared at by something, which made him feel cold all over. "Evil girl, you finally came out?" Suyu's eyes were cold, and he was not afraid. This day would come sooner or later. He was even glad that the evil girl had only managed to escape today. If it had been a little earlier, he would probably have died. But now there was still hope. As long as he became a Pathmaster, he could compete with her. A sense of urgency surged into Suyu's heart. He had to find the dazzling boy as soon as possible and ask him about the location of the Western Holy Land of Bliss. After thinking for a while, Suyu suddenly looked up at the sky and said calmly, "You can come down now." Crash. The Flood Dragon Demonic Emperor, or to be exact, the Empyrean Fairy, appeared in front of Suyu. Staring at Suyu's face, she was slightly surprised. "It's you?" Just now, he had tried to find out who was in the colorful light, but he was blocked by an indescribably powerful barrier. It felt like there was a world blocking his sight. Only now did he recognize the person in the light. It was Suyu, whom he had tried to kill before. Chapter 2134. The indestructible ancestral demon once said, "When a man with 9 colors of light comes, he will show me the safe way to survive this catastrophe." Therefore, the Demon Emperor had been waiting here. He never expected that the person he was waiting for was Suyu. However, when he saw that Suyu's slightly reddened eyes were filled with coldness, he knew that it was impossible for them to reconcile. He wanted to interrogate Suyu, but he remembered the last words of the indestructible ancestral demon, "Don't force things." So far, every word of the indestructible ancestral demon had come true. But if he didn't force things, what should he do? "What can I do for you?" Suyu said lightly. Seeing that he was guarding him, Suyu did not attack immediately. The Flood Dragon Emperor was slightly surprised. It seemed that Suyu did not have a deep hatred for him. Perhaps the relationship between them could be resolved. The Flood Dragon Emperor lowered his posture and said, "I was instructed by the indestructible ancestral demon to wait for you here." Suyu looked at him lightly, but he saw through his thoughts at a glance. "You want to ask me how to avoid the catastrophe of the end of the world in 100 years, right?" His soul power was unprecedentedly strong, and he was already at the level of a half-step path master. It was easy to pry into a person's mind. Even if the other party was at the level of a path master, he would not be able to stop him if he was not on guard. The Flood Dragon Emperor was shocked. He looked at Suyu in surprise, and then immediately blocked his thoughts so that Suyu could not pry. "Sorry, I don't know how to avoid the catastrophe. The indestructible ancestral demon's words may not be entirely correct." He really did not know where the so-called road ahead was. The Flood Dragon Emperor did not think so. The indestructible ancestral demon's words seemed to predict the future. He must have his reasons for saying so. Perhaps Suyu himself had not realized that he had mastered something that ordinary people could not. Combined with what he had just seen, the double ultimacy emperor, he was even more certain of his judgment. "It's okay." The Flood Dragon Emperor thought for a moment and said, "If you need me, just tell me. I want to follow you in the coming days." "Follow me?" Suyu shook his head. The danger he encountered was beyond imagination. If he followed him, not only would he not be able to find the way forward, but he might also die. However, Suyu did not reject it. After thinking for a while, he said, "You are called the mysterious fairy of the ninth heaven?" "Yes," the Flood Dragon Monarch said sincerely. "To be precise, she is one of the thousands of soul fragments of the Empyrean fairy." Suyu thought for a moment, then asked, "How many years have you lived?" "About half an era." The Empyrean fairy answered honestly, "My original body was once the path master of the Temple of Heaven. After learning about the truth of the absolute beginning realm, I fled the Temple of Heaven and split my soul into millions of parts, each possessing a different living being in hopes of avoiding disaster." Half an era? This was not the first time Suyu had heard of the word era. What is an era? An epoch refers to the amount of time a true world has existed. The Flood Dragon Emperor was quite knowledgeable. For example, the Great Beginning Realm is a real world, meaning a real world. Cavern worlds and the inner worlds of some giant beasts are ultimately spaces. The Absolute Beginning Realm is the true world, a world that can accommodate everything. That's why it's called a true world. The time the true world lasts for is known as an aeon. Suyu's eyes lit up slightly, and he reached out and said, "Please sit down and talk." The Flood Dragon Emperor was overjoyed and sat down with Suyu to talk. Fate really made fools of people. Not long ago, the Flood Dragon Emperor was in this palace, preparing to kill Suyu. Who would have thought that not long after, the two of them were talking peacefully? Suyu had many questions that he hadn't had time to ask the indestructible ancestral demon. The Empyrean fairy in front of him was an existence who had lived for countless years. He could learn more about the secrets of the world from her. The beginning and end of an era are all decided by the Stonebirth Son of Heaven? Suyu asked. The Flood Dragon Emperor looked at the sky, pointed to himself, and waved his hand, meaning that he didn't dare to answer this question. Once he answered, he would definitely be sensed by the way of heaven and be erased from the world. Suyu suddenly realized that once he spoke about the end of the world, it would indeed lead to the destruction of the way of heaven. For example, the common people's path master. His remnant soul wanted to say something, but it was erased by a mysterious hand. After a moment's thought, Suyu released a small world of 30 feet and enveloped the two of them. When he was first enveloped by this world, the Flood Dragon Emperor was slightly puzzled. When he sensed it, his face changed drastically, and he cried out in horror, This is a real world?" Unlike other worlds, Suyu's 30 feet small world was indeed a real world that could stand on equal footing with the Great Beginning Realm. His? How is this possible? How could a small world be born in a real world like the Great Beginning Realm? If Suyu's small world continued to expand, wouldn't he be able to control an entire real world and become a supreme being like the Stonebirth Son of Heaven? His breathing quickened. At this moment, he finally understood why the indestructible ancestral demon said that Suyu was the one who showed him the way forward. If he controlled a small world, he might be able to compete with the destruction of the world in the future. The small world was isolated from the Great Beginning Realm. No matter what he said, the way of heaven of the Great Beginning Realm couldn't sense it. He relaxed a lot and cupped his fist. "Since Mr. Su has asked, I will tell you everything I know." Suyu felt a little awkward about the way he addressed her. She was attached to the body of the Flood Dragon Demon Emperor. Sensing that something was wrong, the flood dragon demon emperor's body shone with golden light. Then, the golden light dissipated, revealing a beautiful woman in black clothes. Her face was glowing softly, and her voice was feminine again. She said, "I have been rude." She then said, "Mr. Su, the great beginning realm is a real world that exists naturally, but it is occupied by a group of people from an unknown place. They call themselves the people of chaos, and they occupy the birthplace of the real world, the holy mountain." Suyu said in a low voice, "Then, why do they start eras after eras?" "For immortality." The mysterious fairy of the ninth heaven really knew a lot of secrets. When the world has a lifespan, who can live forever? The mysterious fairy of the ninth heaven sighed. In order to ensure that they will never perish, the people of chaos will start to destroy the world whenever they are ordered to reach the end. They will collapse the whole great beginning realm and bury all living creatures except the people of chaos. After everything in the world is destroyed, it will turn into unimaginable energy and return to the holy mountain. Taking this opportunity, the 10 emperors absorb that energy and continue to extend their lives. Then, they use the holy mountain to start a new round of creation. With the great beginning energy in the holy mountain, they create all living things in the world. When their lifespan is about to end, they destroy the world again. And so, the cycle continues, forming one era after another. After listening, Su Yu's eyes lit up with understanding. Then he muttered, "Everything is for immortality, so the people of the world can be slaughtered at will and become their sacrifices?" A touch of hatred surged in Su Yu's heart. It was not only Su Yu's hatred, but also the hatred of countless people. Why should they become the tools of the Stonebirth Emperor's immortality? Now this era is coming to an end. All the powerful beings who know the truth of the world are trying their best to resist the destruction of the world, hoping to survive until the next era. "I am one of them," the mysterious fairy of the ninth heaven said. Suyu did not say a word. In his opinion, what was the point of living until the next era? In the end, they were just livestock raised by the Stonebirth Emperor. This time, they were lucky enough to escape the slaughter. As long as they were still in the circle, they would still be food for the Stonebirth Emperor. Moreover, the more fat they were raised, the easier it was to become the next target. Therefore, there were powerful beings in the later stages of the world who chose to resist. Among them, there was the human ancestor, whose soul was destroyed and body did not die. With the power of one person, he fought the Stonebirth Emperor alone. He successfully killed one and shattered another, creating a legend that inspired the world. As long as there was a guardian similar to the human ancestor in every era, there would be no need to worry about the chaos not being destroyed and the emperor not dying. Although Su Yu did not have the unparalleled benevolence of the human ancestor who regarded the world as his responsibility. However, for the sake of Qin Xianer, he could. He was willing to imitate the human ancestor and fight against the holy mountain and the chaos. After understanding the unknown secrets of the world, Su Yu paused for a long time before gradually digesting it. Thinking of something, he said, "Since you are a member of the Palace of Heaven, do you understand why all the Path Masters dream of a game of chess before they die?" This question was entrusted to Su Yu by the Master of the Heaven Remnant Path. However, it happened suddenly, and there had been no opportunity to ask the undying ancestral demon. The mysterious fairy of the ninth heaven was very knowledgeable, and she came from the Temple of Heaven, so she might know some secrets. Hearing this, the Empyrean fairy revealed a trace of fear and hatred in her eyes. She said, "What else could it be? Of course, it's because some Stonebirth heavenly son was injured or needed for cultivation, so he used the heavenly Tao to arbitrarily deprive a Tao master of his lifespan. As for why I dreamed of playing chess, based on my understanding, it should be related to the sacred mountain. When I was in the Temple of Heaven, I accidentally heard our temple master mention that there used to be a young man who played chess on the sacred mountain. Later on, when the stone-birth Son of Heaven descended, that young man disappeared. That trace of dreamland should have something to do with the chessboard that the youth is playing on. A young chess player? Suyu remembered that when he was flipping through the wordless heavenly book and was engrossed in it, he had seen a young man playing chess. Could it be that the young man playing chess that the fairy of the ninth heaven mentioned was him? Although he did not understand the meaning behind it, he finally got the answer as promised. He could explain it to the heaven-crippling Tao Master. If you have any other questions, this concubine will be happy to answer them, said the Empyrean fairy. Suyu thought for a moment, then said, One last question? Do you know where the Holy Land of Western Bliss is? Upon hearing this, the fairy of the ninth heaven shook her head. I've heard of it, but I'm afraid very few people could tell the exact location of the Holy Land at that time. Why? Because the Holy Land of Western Bliss is always moving, and people who are not fated to meet it can't meet it. Moving? No wonder the undying ancestral demon asked him to look for the multi-eyed boy first. The multi-eyed boy might have some special technique, and he could see the location of the Holy Land of Western Bliss. Have you heard of the multi-eyed boy? Upon hearing this, the fairy of the ninth heaven had a strange look on her face. Him? Are you sure you want to meet him? Chapter 21:35. No, but the multi-eyed boy has some special fetishes. You might not be able to stand it. It's okay. Just tell me how to find him. Since Suyu insisted on looking for him, the fairy of the nine heavens would not stop him. She said, He spends most of his time in the most famous gambling star. If you go there, you should be able to find him. Gambling star? Suyu nodded and put away the small world. Thank you for your answer. It's my pleasure. The fairy of the nine heavens looked at Suyu and said, From now on, I will follow you. If you need my help, I might be able to help you. Suyu would naturally not reject her request. With a path master by his side, everything would be much safer. Bang! Suddenly, several half-path masters barged in, followed by Huangfu Liang and Mo Xiaochai. It was hard for them not to notice such a huge commotion. Huangfu Liang and Mo Xiaochai were dumbfounded when they opened the door and took a look at what was happening inside Suyu's morgue. Suyu? Huangfu Liang could not believe his eyes. Mo Xiaochai also looked at Suyu, who was sitting in front of the table. He should be dead. Suyu looked at the two of them and was slightly stunned. Then, he understood why his body was suddenly found. Someone must have used the demon realm's forbidden fairy artifact. Suyu did not say a word. He laughed and walked forward to give Huangfu Liang a bear hug. Huangfu Liang was so happy that he cried. He immediately started chatting with Suyu as if there was no one else around. He wondered why Huangfu Liang, who should have died, was still alive. Suyu briefly explained the reason. Huangfu Liang and Mo Xiaochai were dumbfounded. How could there be such a coincidence? Suyu's body was destroyed, and the purple-haired Suyu's body was separated. Thus, Suyu could find his original body again. As a token of gratitude, please accept this small gift. Suyu pointed at Mo Xiaochai's belly. It was the comprehension he had gained when he achieved the path of all gods. If he gave it to Huangfu Liang's child, he could become the god of all gods like Suyu in the future. In other words, he would have the saint body of all gods. To be precise, this child also contained the pure blood of the immortal ancestor. It was impossible to predict what kind of body would be born from this combination. Thank you, Brother Su. Huangfu Liang was extremely excited. Mo Xiaochai was also very grateful. Displeasure appeared on the faces of the three half-step Tao masters as they stared at Suyu and questioned, Empress Dowager, can this person really be trusted? This corpse is filled with a considerable amount of evil energy. Indeed, because the body had been controlled by the purple-haired Suyu for a long time, it had accumulated a lot of evil energy. Let's search his soul first and confirm his identity, said another half-step Tao Lord. However, A voice that caused the 3 half-stepped Dowlords to shudder suddenly resounded. "Why don't you search my soul first?" The 3 half-stepped Dowlords looked in the direction of the voice, and they saw that a figure had suddenly appeared on the empty seat. The 3 half-stepped Dowlords turned pale with fright when they saw him, and they hurriedly knelt down and said, "Demon Emperor!" It turned out that the mysterious fairy of the 9 heavens had disappeared for a moment. She, who did not want others to see her true appearance, turned back into the Demon Emperor. The mysterious fairy of the 9th heaven snorted lightly. "The 3 of you are very bold. How dare you suspect my friend?" The 3 half-stepped Dowlords shivered as they said, "Welcome back, Demon Emperor." As they spoke, they looked at Emo Xiaochai's belly with pity. It was really a pity that the current Demon Emperor was still here, and the unborn demon clan's royal family couldn't become the Demon Emperor. The mysterious fairy of the 9 heavens looked at Su Yu, then at Emo Xiaochai's belly. She then said calmly, "I have already stepped down from the Demon Emperor's position. From now on, the unborn demon clan's royal family will inherit the throne." The 3 half-stepped Dowlords were overjoyed, but they still spoke in fear. Huang Fu Liang and Emo Xiaochai were quite surprised. What was going on with Su Yu? How could he influence the position of the Demon Emperor? They had clearly sensed something unusual from the way the Demon Emperor had looked at Su Yu. Huang Fu Liang chuckled bitterly in his heart. No matter where he went, Su Yu was always the same. "Brother Su, why don't you stay here and live a good life with us in the demon realm?" Huang Fu Liang suggested. After controlling the vast demon realm, he could already control his own fate. He could totally settle down here. Su Yu sighed inwardly. Sometimes ignorance was bliss. 100 years would be the end of the era. At that time, the demon realm wouldn't be able to escape the destruction of the world. "Thank you, but I have more important things to do." Su Yu shook his head. He didn't tell them the truth of the world. Instead, he wrote a letter on the spot and handed it to Huang Fu Liang. He said, "Find a reliable person and deliver this letter to the Tiancan Path Master in the Yellow Palace in the Blue Mirror Civilization Department." Huang Fu Liang couldn't stop him. He could only sigh and say, "I will do it for you." Su Yu thought to himself, perhaps this was the best ending. If he had asked the indestructible ancestral demon, the Tiancan Path Master would have been turned into ashes by now. Now, he could still live, but he didn't know when he would die. After catching up with the 2 of them for a while, Su Yu said goodbye to them and said, "See you later." They used the transportation portal and headed to the faraway gambling star. Several years later, in the Yellow Palace Civilization Department, a letter fell into the hands of the Tiancan Path Master. Opening it, the Tiancan Path Master's eyes were filled with sorrow. "I should have thought of this earlier. The cultivation of my generation is only for the sake of feeding the Supreme Being in the dark." They had cultivated and worked hard all their lives, but it turned out that they were just nourishment for others. A great sorrow emerged in his eyes. He had long known the truth of the world, so he had lost the fighting spirit of his youth. Because he knew very well that no matter how hard he worked, he would eventually be sacrificed for others. However, he didn't expect that even though he lived in a remote corner, he still couldn't escape the fate of becoming nourishment for others. The chess encounter in the dream was a sign that he was going to become nourishment for the stone-born son of heaven. After a long time, he put down the letter. His heart thumped and he crushed something. It was the seal that controlled the attacks of the 3 Path Masters that were given to Su Yu. Now that it was broken, Su Yu could use it at will. "Haha, now that you know the truth, do you still want to continue exploring further?" The Tiancan Path Master said to himself. He used to have the same dream as Su Yu, wanting to explore the great beginning realm. However, after learning the truth, he was disheartened. From then on, he joined the Yellow Palace and lived his days in a muddle. Boom! Just as he was thinking, a boundless tsunami came from the void. The entire void was boiling, as if there was a giant whale in the sea, pushing the seawater. The void was like that, surging rapidly, shifting all the small civilizations floating in the void. The enormous ecliptic palace even began to tremble. The shocking phenomenon caused the faces of everyone in the Yellow Palace to change drastically. More than 10 Path Masters rose into the air. One of them, a Path Master with disheveled hair and a torn robe, had an unfathomable aura. In front of him, the other Path Masters seemed incomprehensible. "Palace Master, you've come out of seclusion." The Buddha Path Master with a wide body immediately came forward to greet him. The Yellow Palace Master had been in seclusion for hundreds of millions of years and had never come out. Now he was alarmed. The Yellow Palace Master had a grave look in his eyes and said, "How can I not come when the sinful woman is here? The sinful woman of the Heavenly Palace?" The Tiankin Path Master's eyes flashed, and he couldn't believe it. Wasn't it rumored that she was killed by the stone-born son of heaven many years ago? The Yellow Palace Master shook his head slightly. Is it really so easy to kill the number one person below the stone-born son of heaven? I think she was imprisoned by the stone-born son of heaven. Now she finally broke out of seclusion. As they spoke, the boundless void fiercely slammed over, causing the huge civilization of the Yellow Palace to shake continuously. It was as if the Yellow Palace was a small boat in the void that could capsize at any time. Roar! A huge dragon roar came, causing all the Path Masters, including the Yellow Palace Master, to tremble. Looking into the distance, one could see a snow-white dragon rampaging through the void. Everywhere it passed, it caused the void to ripple. When it arrived at the Yellow Palace Master, the snow-white dragon leaped into the sky above the Yellow Palace Master and floated in a cross-legged position. His enormous breath caused all living beings below the level of Dowlord to feel extreme heat as he breathed in and out. However, the dragon did not say a word, as if it was quietly waiting for someone to give the order. "Who is the local Yellow Palace Master?" Suddenly, a clear and beautiful voice came from the top of the dragon's head. The voice was not loud, but in the ears of all the Path Masters, it gave them a strange feeling, causing them to be in a trance. This caused the expressions of the Path Masters to change greatly. Just one sentence could affect their state of mind. What was the cultivation of the sinful lady? Songjing Yellow Palace Master, Nanjia, greets the sinful lady, the Yellow Palace Master greeted. The sinful lady looked down from above and said indifferently, "Have you seen this person in the Faculty of Civilization?" A huge portrait of Su Yu floated in the sky above the Yellow Palace Master. Seeing this, the expressions of everyone present changed. Among them, the Heaven-Crippling Path Master's expression changed the most drastically, followed by the Heaven Wings Path Master. Nanjiao was slightly puzzled and said, "I have been in isolation for many years, and I have never seen him." The sinful lady looked at the rest of the people, but no one was willing to answer. It was not that they had never seen Su Yu, but that they had seen Su Yu but were unwilling to tell. "I have seen him." The Heaven Wings Path Master stood up and said respectfully, "Su Yu came to the Yellow Palace Master and stayed for some time. His beloved disciple, Luotian of the East, died tragically at the hands of Su Yu. Due to the Heaven-Crippling Path Master's partiality, the Heaven Wings Path Master couldn't do anything to him. He could only secretly tell the sinful lady's people, Ziguan, that Su Yu's whereabouts were in the demon realm. Now, he stood up to expose Su Yu. The sinful lady nodded slightly, but the epic-making dragon under her feet laughed coldly. "How can you understand the Master's great path? She has long sensed Su Yu's specific location and deliberately tested you to see which one of you is loyal to the Master." Hearing this, the Heaven Wings Path Master was overjoyed. If he could follow the sinful lady, he might be able to avoid the great calamity in 100 years. He was very glad that he had made the right choice. The rest of the Path Masters looked at the Heaven Wings Path Master with jealousy in their eyes, including the Palace Master. Following the sinful lady would be a meteoric success. The sinful lady looked at the Heaven Wings Path Master and nodded slightly. From now on, you will follow me, however. Before the Heaven Wings Path Master could rejoice, the sinful lady said, however, I hate men very much, so you have to swallow this pill. This was exactly the same pill that had turned Huang Fu Liang and the others into women.